Got my notes. Okay, I'm gonna read what I do on this. Yes. Don't let us see us. Okay.
The agenda still.
Yeah.
Recording has begun. Good evening. This is the May 28th, 2024 meeting of the Education
Outreach and Training Committee.
Outreach and Training Committee of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force of the City and County of San Francisco. The time is 5:36. The Sunshine Ordinance Task Force and its committees convene in hybrid meetings that allow for either in-person attendance or remote participation. Public comment will be taken on each item of the agenda. Meeting decorum. Any member of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force, EOTC, may call for decorum due to disorderly conduct of meeting participants. Persons who engage in threatening and/or menacing behavior may be asked to leave. Chair Hyland, that completes my announcements.
Thank you very much. Let's proceed to item 1.
Item 1, call to order, roll call, and agenda changes. Taking roll call. Chair Hyland.
Present.
Chair Hyland, present. Member Pilpel.
Present.
Member Pilpel, present. Member Kumar.
Present.
Member Kumar, present. Chair Hyland, we have a quorum.
Thank you. I don't think we have any agenda changes.
We know of no agenda changes.
Okay. Next item.
Item 2, approval of the minutes from the Education Outreach and Training Committee meeting of January 23, 2024. That was a regular meeting.
All right. I believe Member Pilpel has some edits.
Yes, thank you, Chair Hyland. So I provided some edits today to Administrator Peterson. I'm not going to dwell on the non-substantive ones. The substantive ones are on page 2. The first paragraph that starts with Winship Hillier at the end, I'm suggesting it should read Deputy City Attorney to provide direction rather than a directive. The next paragraph, the Marlo Simmons paragraph, I believe that Amber Gray, a staff member from Public Health, was present at the hearing as well on behalf of BHC. So I just added a sentence. Amber Gray was also present on behalf of BHC. In the action paragraph below, towards the end, the Behavioral Health Commission was requested to release the site report to Mr. Hillier. So after and/or complete manner, second to last line, semicolon, BHC is requested to release the site report, blah, blah, blah. And then again on page 3, the Marlo Simmons paragraph to add the sentence, Amber Gray was also present on behalf of the BHC. On page 4, the matter involving HV Safe, I believe both Mish Reckers and Richard Johnson should be referred to with HV Safe. There's some confusion because the petitioner entity is HV Safe. The police department was the respondent, and SF Safe was the sort of entity at issue. But I think the minutes got a little confused, and I think this is important to clarify that Mish and Richard Johnson were with HV Safe.
We were confused throughout the entire hearing. There's no reason we shouldn't be confused in the minutes. So
There you go.
that made sense. Yeah.
And we had a little discussion beforehand. I don't believe in my recollection that Lieutenant Toomey was actually present at the meeting. So I believe the Lieutenant Toomey paragraph there should be recast somehow. We talked about ways to do that. I believe Lieutenant Beauchamp stated that from what he understood from Lieutenant Toomey, blah, blah, blah. So I think some discretion to reword that paragraph is appropriate. The other suggestions are non-substantive, and with that understanding, with the direction to the staff to revise as appropriate, I would so move that we adopt the minutes.
Okay. And just to add to that,
Yeah.
I think language, and Pat, you can write this down or read it from the record. Lieutenant Beauchamp stated that in the past, Lieutenant William Toomey, et cetera, reached out to the community to ask about hosting meetings, just to show that, that was an action that took place in the past, and Lieutenant Beauchamp was the only one in the room at the time. I agree.
That sounds right to me. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Moved by Member Pilpel. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Chair Hyland.
Okay. Thank you, Member Pilpel, as always, for your diligence.
Thank you.
Any public comment on those minutes edits?
Any members of the public wishing to speak on item 2, please approach the podium. Members of the online community, if you would like to speak on item 2, please raise your hand using the app or press *3. I see no one in the room. We have, one moment, please. We have no callers online wishing to speak.
Okay, thank you. Public comments closed for item 2. Pat, can everyone in the room hear us? Yeah, okay. It seems like some of the microphones, yours and David's, are kind of muted. I'm not really. Good test. Test. Okay, now it's louder. Okay, all right. I'm usually complaining they're too loud, so I guess I should.
Testing.
Okay, that's great. All right. Let's go to item 3.
Let's take the vote.
We're taking a vote, please.
I'm sorry.
Member Pilpel.
Aye.
Pilpel, aye. Chair Hyland.
Aye.
Chair Hyland, aye. Member Kumar.
Aye.
Member Kumar, aye. 3 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you.
And I'm not sure that we acknowledge Member Kumar for volunteering to sit in today, and we appreciate that.
Yes, we certainly do. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Hopefully this is a permanent addition. No, I'm just joking. Sorry. But it might be. It might be. See how much you enjoy our committee. All right. Item 3, please.
Item 3, public comment. Members of the public may address the Education Outreach and Training Committee on matters that are within the committee's jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda. Anyone in the room wishing to speak on item 3, public comment, please approach the podium. If you're in the online community, raise your hand pressing *3 or use the app. We have no one in the room approaching the podium and no one online with their hand raised. No public comment.
Okay, public comment is closed. Let's go to the next item.
Next item, item 4, file number 24020. Complaint filed by Beth Weingarner against David Serrano Sewell and the Office of the Medical Examiner for allegedly violating Administrative Code Sunshine Ordinance Section 67.21 by failing to respond to a public records request in a timely and/or complete manner.
Okay, are both parties in the room? Or any of the parties?
Beth Weingarner has been made a panelist.
Okay.
Is,
And ma'am, you are, if you can approach.
Good evening. It's Sophie Hayward from the Office of the City Administrator, and I'm here on behalf of David Serrano-Sewell.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here. All right. Okay, so typically we hear from the petitioner first, and you have 5 minutes to kind of summarize how this came about, where things stand, and anything that you might want to bring to our attention. We'll then do the same for the respondent. We'll have some discussion amongst the members, and then we'll give you time for rebuttal of up to 3 minutes each. So, Ms. Weingartner, when you're ready, Ms. Peterson will let you know when you can start.
Hi, this is Beth Weingartner. Can you hear me okay?
yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, great. First, before I begin, I sent some supplemental information on May 23rd, and I wanted to make sure that's in your packet because I didn't see it in the online attachments.
Ms. Weingartner, you're referring to supplemental information that was received on November 2024?
May 23rd.
May 23rd. Members, it was a one-page item under a transmittal memo, correct?
Yes.
Members, it was added to the packet. It is at page 9 in the packet. It is not numbered. It has been added.
Great, thank you.
It's also online, Ms. Weingartner.
Thank you. For introductory purposes, I am a journalist who's been reporting on aspects of government in the Bay Area for about 3 decades, and I'm currently working as a freelance writer. In January 2024 for Mission Local, I began researching for a series of articles on the city's unclaimed dead who are handled by the Office of the Medical Examiner. I reached out to that office to request data that I needed for my reporting. The executive director seemed to resist my requests throughout the process, often appearing to delay providing information and ultimately not providing me with adequate responses, even though the office possesses the data in some format. I first made my first inquiry on January 16th. My email clearly stated public records request in the title. David Serrano-Sewell responded within 7 minutes to say that the office was too busy to handle my request and would have no comment on most of my questions. He then invoked a 14-day extension. He never gave me an estimated time for completion of my request as required under the California Public Records Act. On February 5th, 3 weeks after my initial request, I emailed the medical examiner's office to tell them that they did appear to have records on items I had requested, and I linked to previous articles containing that information, but got no response. Also on February 5th, I asked for any information regarding what items they do have data or records on. That is, I was asking, if you don't have these records, what records do you have? I did not get a response. On February 13th, after 28 days from my initial request and only upon reminder, I received a very basic response to 2 of my 9 questions and assurances that the office was working on enumerating the unclaimed dead for 3 of the 4 years I had requested. On February 14th, I asked for a copy of the office's contract with Colma Cremations. Mr. Serrano-Sewell said that he would put it on his to-do list. I did not receive it for another 2 weeks and only after I sent a reminder. On February 27th, 42 days after my initial request, I finally received tallies of the unclaimed dead for 3 of the 4 years requested. In March and April, the San Francisco Standard published a series of articles on the unclaimed dead. Their reporting included data and information that I had requested from the medical examiner's office, but was told did not exist. See my supplemental for details on that. Mr. Serrano-Sewell's response to my complaint claims that he tried to contact me by phone to clarify my requests. I never received such a call or voicemail. The unclaimed dead of San Francisco are among the city's most vulnerable, and they are cremated and scattered without any public acknowledgement, but paid for with public funds. As a public agency, the medical examiner's office should have a duty to be transparent about who these dead are, how they're handled, and what's changing about them as we deal with increases in overdoses and homelessness. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weingarten.
All right. Is there anybody online looking to provide evidence in support of the petitioner? Any raised
There's no
hand?
one online wishing to speak.
Okay. Anybody in the room? Seeing no one approaching the podium, respondent, please approach.
Good evening, members of the task force. My name is Sophie Hayward, and I am the Director of Legislation and Public Affairs for the Central Office of the City Administrator, and I'm here on behalf of Director David Serrano-Sewell of the Office of the County Medical Examiner. By way of response, I will keep it brief, but of course know that I'm available to answer any questions. The OCME did not have responsive records to the original request, primarily because the OCME does not maintain records in the format that was requested that would have been responsive to the complainant. As you know, the Sunshine Ordinance and the California Public Records Act do not require government agencies to create records that don't already exist. And after responding that they had no responsive records, the OCME considered the matter closed, but the request did evolve through subsequent email exchanges. And in that case, it was in the context more of a media request than a public records request, and we treated it as such. So following that initial exchange, the complainant added additional questions, which we treated as we would any normal media inquiry after the initial public records request was closed. When she did clarify that she was requesting a copy of the contract between the OCME and Colma Creations, we provided that while keeping open channels of communication with the reporter to continue the conversation. And I think, as you know, she published her stories on April 23rd and April 25th of this year. So just by way of example, the complainant asked for the number of decedents that are unclaimed every year. The OCME does not maintain a list of those unclaimed decedents in the normal course of business, so they did not have a responsive record to that particular request. They ended up providing that information by just creating a hand count, looking through other records. They did that data analysis, sent it to the complainant as they would with a media request. That concludes my initial presentation, although I will note, I don't believe that I received the subsequent information that was submitted on May 23rd. I'm happy to try to answer questions, but I think if that's critical, I did not receive it. Which doesn't mean it wasn't sent. It just didn't land with me, and I apologize for that.
That's okay. Is anybody here in support of the respondent or anybody online in support of the respondent?
We have no one in the room approaching the podium and no one online.
Great,
Everything
okay.
raised.
Thank you. All right, the matter is before us. And for the record, page 9 to me, are we talking page 9 PDF or page 9 as it's listed?
Page 9 of the PDF. It's not paginated.
It's ahead of the paginated page 9.
All right, so what, Mr. Member Pilpo, what is the document that you're seeing? It's not in here. What was it that what's document about? Administrator Peterson. Hold on
One
one
moment,
second.
please.
Just want to make sure what this is. And May 23rd would have been,
Do you want your sheet back?
that would have been in time for our 5-day, would have been in time for our 5-day.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Pilpo.
I've not seen this in the packet.
Can I just insert a couple of things for a second?
Sure.
Okay. Member Pilpel here. So I believe I know Ms. Weingarner only by name because I've read lots of bylines over the years, but I don't know her as an individual. I do know Joe Eskenazi from Mission Local, but I've not spoken to him in a while, and I certainly haven't spoken to him about this case. As relates to this supplemental information to Administrator Peterson, in the future, if there's something that comes in like this, if we could just make several copies to have at the meeting. Whether or not we decide to reference it, it's just good to have that because apparently some people haven't been able to find it online, and it would just be, good. Not 30 copies, but 5 or 10 would be helpful. That's all. Not a big deal. Not the end of the world.
And just for the record,
yeah.
Is it 3 days? Is it 5 days? What's our deadline for accepting material for a case?
5 days,
5 business days?
5 business days prior.
Okay, in which case this should not be in the package. Because if it was accepted on Thursday, May 23rd, and today is Tuesday, May 28th, that's 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 at a stretch.
Yes.
So technically, I don't think we should refer to this. It's not in the package, and that's the way it should be. It needs to have been submitted earlier. I haven't looked at it. I don't know if it's substantive or not. But anyhow, I think there's other matters that are more important before us.
If I may, I was incorrect. I said it on May 20th.
Okay. That makes a difference, but Patricia, do you have or Pat, do you have a email record showing we received it on the 20th?
1 moment, please.
Thanks. So while our administrator is looking for that, let me get to the heart of the matter as I see it. I agree with the respondent that some of these questions are more about opinion rather than precise requests for documents that may or may not exist. However, the very first question is pretty plain. How many unclaimed descendants were there by year? And if, as indicated, they said, well, most of these questions we can't answer. However, this one we can answer, that would have been a good start, rather than invoking a 14-day extension for questions that you're not going to answer anyway. So you kind of lose the invoking 14 days for, long and research and whatnot. When you evoke that and then you produce nothing, it doesn't look very consistent. Anyway, I'll just throw that out there. But members, any thoughts? Ms. Pat, you have an answer for us?
Yes, Ms. Weingarner's communication was sent on Monday, May 20th at 11:42 a.m.
Okay, but it did not make it into our package. Unless.
Checking 1 moment, please.
Yeah. All right, while she's checking that. Member Pilpel?
Several thoughts. So I see a couple of sides of this. From the journalist or public or requester side, I understand Ms. Weingarner's request or series of questions to be, pretty reasonable in terms of the public interest in the operations of OCME. At the same time, I understand from OCME's perspective, to the extent that they might interpret this as a series of questions or interrogatories, that they're not required to respond to questions or interrogatories, nor are they required to create new records that don't exist. Okay, so then you're back to, if there are records that are responsive to a question or inquiry, can they be gathered and provided to the requester as if the request was for those records, because those records are indeed responsive to a query? Okay, so you can parse this a lot of different ways. I think where I end up with this in in the end, regardless of whether we find or recommend a violation, I would encourage Ms. Hayward to discuss within the office of the city administrator, because there are a number of complaints that have come up over the years with a few with the central office of the city administrator, but more so with the various operating units, which frankly span all kinds of different functions in the city, from 311, animal care and control. I think Office of Cannabis is in there these days. It's sort of a soup to nuts agency, some of whom are small and very focused, and others are smaller and even more focused. I would encourage the office to consider having a person that is centrally responsible for sunshine requests, and that requests that go to the individual divisions get rerouted back to the central office, and that person would know enough about how the divisions operate and their systems and whatnot to be able to say, I think you have that, let's just get it to them, or let's look for that, or let's seek advice of the city attorney, or let's figure out how to deal with this. Because having, 20 or 34 different functions with 2 or 3 people up to, 100 people, which ultimately rolls up to 500 or 600 total, doesn't really get enough, has enough expertise to get the core functions done, but doesn't necessarily have the wherewithal to deal with both media requests and public requests and sort of sorting through this kind of thing. And over the years, there have been various people, Bill Barnes and others, that have dealt with this in the city administrator's office. And I think it's time for the office to think about centralizing this stuff. There was a complaint years ago involving animal care that involved pulling each individual record of, I don't know, either vicious animals or adopted animals or something, and somehow aggregating all of that to some kind of report about 2,000 animals. And it just was overwhelming for them to do with their systems. And it spanned like a year and a half of a week at a time. Just a nightmare. And there are plenty of other examples. So I don't want to make OCME the poster child or the example of this, as much as to say, and I'm not really speaking for or against David Serrano Sewell's management and other history with OCME, but just that having this more centralized, just as agencies bigger and smaller that have multiple units tend to have a single primary point of contact and a secondary point of contact to coordinate sunshine issues. And they generally find, it's not perfect, but they find that they can respond better because they get the give and take of all of this. And I say that with much respect to all that you're responsible for, the ongoing budget thing, whatnot. Okay. That's my bottom line suggestion there. As to
if I can just summarize,
yeah.
I think Member Pilpel is asking, do you have a custodian of records? And you can answer that.
Sure.
That would be helpful. See, I summarized 3 minutes and 3 seconds.
You're so good.
All right.
Sophie Hayward from the Office of the City Administrator. And yes, we do have a custodian of records, and perhaps more germane to your point, Member Pilpel, we are transitioning to that very model.
Good.
Which does allow us to provide more consistent answers, but it also allows us to kind of parse the difference between a pure public records request and a media request, which we do handle somewhat differently.
Okay. And where appropriate, to ask people to clarify and prioritize and tease out what is it that you're actually, I don't care why you're asking, but what is it that you're actually trying to get at? How can we get it to you? What do you need? All of that. Okay, that's fine. Back on the specific, feel free to hang out if you want.
Okay.
Yeah. back on the specific to perhaps to Ms. Weingartner, I'm not losing you here. You were asking some real questions about how the office operates and how the indigent are handled and unclaimed bodies, et cetera. This is serious stuff. And I'm sure you're appropriately peeved that the SF Standard, a bit of a competitor, was able to scoop you on the publishing because they got information however they got it, despite the fact that you'd been asking for it for a while. Am I understanding that correctly?
100%, yes. And
Okay.
peeved is a good word.
Okay.
And just for the record, Administrator Peterson just showed me your addendum did make it into the printed copy, but not the online copy, Ms. Weingartner. So
Great, thank you.
we're seeing that here, and that's what you and David Pilpel were just referring to. So that kind of adds some context to everything.
So
Continue.
I'm just continuing on with Ms. Weingartner. So I'm struggling to figure out how, regardless of how OCME or city administrator is organized or dealing with requests, how your seemingly reasonable inquiry, starting back in January with the subject line media inquiry and public records request, how that could have been any more clear. And I think the answer is no, it couldn't really have been any more clear. And the initial response from Mr. Serrano-Sewell that day, a few minutes later, was, Beth, very busy and just don't know when I can get to all these questions, many of which we'd no comment.
Perhaps I can jump in. So you get points for responding quickly, but you don't get points for not responding with the information quickly. And I think as questions 1, 2, 5, and 8, which you later provided responses to, should have been handled more quickly. So, I'm inclined to refer this to the consent calendar as a 6721B violation for timeliness at the very least for those items, because those questions were answered. And even invoking an extension, which is questionable, they were not answered within the extension period, even if we consider that to be a reasonable extension. So I think it's a pretty clear black and white case of that at the very least. And that's kind of where I'm sitting on this one. I don't think we need to go into too much of the follow-on questions. Those are not the scope of the original questions, which is what we're focusing on here. So we don't need to go down that rabbit hole. But would the respondent care to admit that those answers could have been provided in a more timely fashion? That's a question for you, Ms. Hayward.
I really can't speak to how quickly they could have been answered. My understanding is that the data related to how many people's remains go unclaimed by their families each year is not maintained by the Office of the County Medical Examiner in that format. So that was a record that they had the information in a different format, and they had to assemble it in the format requested, and they eventually did get that information to the respondent. Technically, they did not have a responsive record in that format. I understand if you refer this, I'm not pushing back, but technically speaking, they did not have a responsive record at that time.
So what record was this compiled from?
Other information they had, it wasn't year over year.
Such as?
I don't know off the top of my head. Once they drilled down to, for example, question 8, does the medical examiner's office contract with a specific mortuary? Once they got that information. They did provide the contract. They could have provided that contract in a more timely fashion, certainly.
Okay, that was pretty specific, and yeah. It seems mind-boggling to me that they don't have a breakdown of males, females, by race, well, we don't know age always, but some sort of statistical breakdown as a standard practice.
My understanding is they have that information, but not year by year with all of that information. They have it in other areas associated with each medical record and report, but not aggregated in a spreadsheet based on unclaimed dead.
Okay, so that's something they would have had to run a query on to pull
They
it.
did assemble it eventually
Okay,
based on existing records.
all right.
Can I just jump
Member?
in again and then Member
Yeah.
Kumar?
Yeah.
I know has questions.
Why don't we let Member Kumar go
Why don't
next?
we let Member Kumar go?
Yes, all right.
Yeah. As a journalist myself, I know I just want to share some advice. Like, if I can completely understand it, if the subject says media inquiry and then public records request, it sometimes throws people off guard. They think it's a media inquiry, but I do want to say that some of the responses that I see are very vague and they don't give a timeline. I think in the future, especially when corresponding with journalists, or anybody actually, it's like, especially for this question, we see there's an answer that says, can I get a copy of the office's contract with Colma cremations? And it says, I will put it on my to-do list. I mean, I need to know, I mean, as a journalist and as a member of the public, I need to know when I can get that. I get it, it's on your to-do list, but I need to know when I can get it. So, it is a violation of the Sunshine Ordinance if I can't get clarity on when I can get the record. So I know I can understand that there's a lot of things going on in your department and everybody is overwhelmed with a lot of things. But yeah, just for future correspondences, it's better to give a timeline or clarity to the person who's asking for a request.
Did you
I understand.
For this year, I mean, yeah.
Thank you, Member Kumar. All right, Member Pilpel?
Sorry. So I'm just, yes, I agree, Chair Hyland, and I suspect that we will recommend a violation. I'm just trying to think more about, how to fix this in the future. I think we talked a little bit about centralization. I can't remember if the OCME produces an annual report. I recall that all departments are supposed to. I don't know how that works at a division level. If they have, great, and maybe some of this is in there. If they haven't, maybe they could, or maybe this rolls up to, Carmen's annual report. But it seems like the questions and some of the underlying line of inquiry of Ms. Weingartner, and particularly if the standard, not particularly, to the extent that the standard also reported on it, this is, an area of concern.
Member Pilpel, let me summarize a little bit. We can before I do that, let me ask Ms. Weingartner, is there, and I realize this was, maybe a bit of a moot point now because an article's already been published along the lines of what you were thinking, but is there any of these questions that you feel have not been answered yet that you believe
Or sufficiently.
or still should be answered, and potentially there are documents that will answer them? Let me start with that. And then if there are, I'm going to recommend that, if we do forward it for 6721B, that we also recommend it goes to compliance and amendments to further monitor those future responses. And that will hopefully show whether they have a process in place where this is going to a custodian of records and it's being triaged correctly at inception and not what we see here. So, Ms. Weingartner, to you, that question is, are there any of your original 9 questions, 9 questions that you feel there are responsive documents that would answer that? Let me start with that.
Somehow the standard was able to get records that included specific demographic data. My guess is that they got a person by person record of all of the unclaimed dead for the past few years, but that's just me piecing it together from what their reporting was. Ms. Hayward said that I had asked for demographic data year by year, which I had not asked for. I was just asking for overall demographic data and anything that would point to common causes of death, whether this is related to increases in homelessness or overdoses. The standard, again, reported that information, so they got it from somewhere, and I don't know where. So there are records that I did not get that the standard was able to get.
Okay, thank you. Should we go to, I was going to go to rebuttals, but Member Kumar, you had a question?
Yeah, just a comment. I did go through the standard article. It does say that San Francisco maintains no public list of unclaimed dead. So, but they haven't written if the department has commented on it. So I don't know if they've just written this as a statement or they've corroborated from a government agency, but that's what I read in the article.
And
Thank
if
you,
I
Member
may,
Kumar. Member Pilpel?
I think what I was getting at a moment ago was taking this opportunity not just to look at centralization, but to look at annual reports and ways to, aggregate some data if it's not being aggregated now. I have not looked at the OCME website. It may be that some of the underlying policy issues, not necessarily the results year to year, but how does the city deal with blah, 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 what are the means of disposition, da, 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 could be on the website. Here's what we do for bodies that are claimed. Here's what we do for bodies that aren't claimed. Here's, what our response times are and what our performance is, blah, blah, blah. I think there's an opportunity here to do better in terms of public information, regardless of what the media is interested in and what they want to report and what angle, which is fine. I've got no issue with that. But I think that given the pretty substantial investment in OCME over the last, what's it been, 10, 20 years since the last big, yeah. Anyway, there's a huge building. There's been a lot of work on cases and backlog and procedures and accreditation, and it's a big investment. And I don't know that the public is seeing as much of the result in these areas of reporting and website, for example, to benefit from that investment. I would say things are not as bad as they were a while back, but they're not as good as they could be. And for a fairly small investment in public information in this area, we can at least tell people what we do and how we do it. And they can make their own decisions about whether they like it or not. And through the budget and the political process, perhaps change that, but at least, it shouldn't be, to Ms. Weingartner, I think it shouldn't be this hard to get the basic information that you were asking, none of which seems at all unreasonable.
Thank you, Member Pilpel. All right,
Want to summarize that?
Let's move to, nope, I don't need. Let's move to rebuttals. And in rebuttals, the respondent goes first. You have 3 minutes to kind of add anything else that you think might be of value. And anything else you'd like to bring to our attention, and then followed by the petitioner. So, Ms. Hayward, Administrator Peterson will let you know when she's ready.
I'm certainly available for questions as they come up, but I don't have a prepared rebuttal.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Weingartner, hold on one second. Ms. Peterson will let you know when she's ready.
Ms. Weingartner, you've been unmuted. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I just want to say briefly that I'm encouraged to hear that the committee does not think that I should have had to go to the lengths that I had to go to try to get the very limited amount of information that I did receive. And I am still wondering how it could have been clearer to me that they were taking some of my questions as a media request instead of a public records request, such as when I asked, which documents do you have that might come close to answering my questions? Because again, other reporters were able to get that information. And it feels like I'm being tricked into asking the right or wrong question in order to get the information that I need. I don't think that's how government agencies ought to work. So I'm encouraged by this conversation. I'm happy to answer any other questions. And I hope this goes forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weingarter.
Thank you.
Just having been on the task force for over 12 years and having seen a lot of journalists' questions like this, try and think of it from a documents perspective. In other words, ask questions like, please send me all stats for deaths that the OCME handles with any breakdowns. And then you can drill down further. But, you asked a lot of sort of, why is this happening? Why does that happen? Those kind of questions. There isn't a document that answers that. So make your questions document driven, and we can certainly help you with that. I think that's the only piece of advice that I would give you. So having said that, I want to make a motion for 6721B violation for timeliness. I also want to note that the respondent did admit that certain pieces of information should have been provided in a more timely fashion, and find that this does fall within our jurisdiction, and recommend this all goes to our consent calendar for the full task force.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Member Pilpel. May I read the action back?
Please. And actually, let me reorder it. We find that the requested records are public. We refer the matter to the full task force consent agenda with a recommendation of violation for 6721B by failing to respond to a public records request in a timely and complete manner. And the committee also notes that the respondent acknowledged that the reference violation occurred. How's that?
I think we also add that we find that we have jurisdiction.
I think I put that in
Okay,
there.
all right.
That's I started with that.
Okay.
One addition. Refer the matter to the task force consent calendar with a recommendation to find a violation that the office of the medical examiner violated administrative code.
Thank you. That's correct.
Public comment?
Yes, please.
Members of the public who have joined us live, please approach the podium. If you would like to make public comment on item number 4, file number 24020. Members of the online community, if you would like to speak on item 4, please raise your hand using the app or press *3. Chair Hyland, we have someone at the podium. Mr. Lataki.
Hi, referencing Mr. Sewell's original email, invoking the 14-day extension because the director was busy is really saying the quiet part out loud, which is that agencies tend to treat the 14-day.
I'm sorry, can you pull it closer? I'm not hearing you.
Sorry. Invoking the 14-day extension because the director was busy is saying the quiet part out loud, which is that agencies tend to treat the 14-day extension as a free delay, irrespective of the complexity of the request.
Thank you. Any other members of public in the room have public comment? Seeing none. And
There are no other requests for comment.
great. Okay. Public comment is closed.
Mr. Chair.
Member Pilpel?
Before we take a vote, just so that we're clear for the minutes, if we can just capture somehow that we had the dialogue about centralization, the annual report, and the website. And I would suggest if Ms. Weingartner is willing to provide any comments to the office, either to Mr. Serrano Sewell or to Ms. Hayward, to get routed, however they're going to route it. If she has thoughts about the website or the annual report, things that could be included that might be useful. I don't think we're subject matter experts, but it seems like Ms. Weingartner has dug in somewhat to this topic and might have something useful. And if she's willing, I think that might help.
Yeah, I think,
And hopefully the office would be receptive to all of
right.
that.
I think that'll come through in the minutes, in the
Okay.
record.
Clarification, that was noting a conversation about centralization, the website, and the annual report.
Yes.
Thank you.
And thank you to both sides on this. Good.
All right, take a roll call.
Chair Hyland.
Aye.
Chair Hyland, aye. Member Pilpel.
Aye.
Member Pilpel, aye. Member Kumar.
Aye.
Member Kumar, aye. 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. Hayward. Thank you, Ms. Weingartner, for being here. Next item, please.
Thank you, Ms. Weingartner.
Item 5, file number 24021. Complaint filed by Matthew Lataki against the Police Department for allegedly violating Administrative Code Sunshine Ordinance Section 67.21 by failing to respond to a records request in a timely and/or complete manner.
All right. Is the petitioner and/or respondent in the room with us?
We have Lieutenant Chris Beauchamp from the Police Department.
Online?
Online, he is now a panelist. We have Mr. Lataki in the room.
Wonderful. Okay. Mr. Lataki, you can approach and you can kind of see our process here. So Ms. Peterson will give you a prompt and then you can start with your 5-minute summary.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, the time?
5 minutes.
1 moment.
Up to 5 minutes. That doesn't mean you have to use it all, but 5 minutes for this first one and 3 minutes for rebuttals is typically what we do.
Mr. Lataki, your 5 minutes begins now.
Thank you. Good evening to the committee. Over the past few years, I've become concerned with the proliferation of automatic license plate reader cameras being installed in cities and counties across the Bay Area. These cameras record the license plate of every vehicle that drives by. In some cities, this data is uploaded to regional fusion centers where local, state, and federal agencies can access this data all without a warrant. Retention of this data is anywhere between 30 days and 5 years, regardless of any involvement with a criminal investigation. Needless to say, these cameras pose serious privacy risks and prompt Fourth Amendment questions. Our city understands that transparency around law enforcement surveillance tools is paramount. Our Surveillance Technology Ordinance, Section 19B, is one of the most comprehensive police transparency ordinances in the country, requiring departments to document the use and limits of surveillance technology. In March of this year, the San Francisco Police Department started installing 400 of these cameras throughout the city. I submitted a public records request seeking the location of these cameras so that I could evaluate the privacy impact they would have on me. The police department has withheld the location of these cameras, citing Government Code Section 7923.600A, known colloquially as the law enforcement exemption. However, despite its name, it does not apply to all records simply involving law enforcement, but rather only records that fit narrow exemptions. A map showing the location of these cameras does not fall under the law enforcement exemption. The police department initially claimed that the location of the cameras are records of, quote, security and intelligence information, unquote. Upon my rebuttal, they now state that the locations are security files. I remain unpersuaded. Our state constitution prescribes the California Public Records Act and the Sunshine Ordinance be construed in favor of the people's right to access government records. Firstly, the California Supreme Court has held that the very data that these cameras produce is not covered under the law enforcement exemption. Secondly, these cameras are in plain view, they're not concealed, and they're being touted publicly as a crime-fighting tool. There's no notion of confidentiality with these cameras, which is crucial for a record to be considered intelligence information. And thirdly, the locations of these cameras are not a security file, both because they are not part of any file and also because the cameras are not installed as a general security measure, but rather an investigative tool. The task force has jurisdiction to find that the map of the license plate reader cameras is public record. I urge the committee to recommend this matter to the full task force with the recommendation that a violation has occurred and that the records ordered released. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody here in support of the petitioner in the room or online? Seeing nobody in the room.
And no online.
All right. Okay. Next, we'll go to Lieutenant Beauchamp. Ms. Peterson, let him know when you are ready.
Lieutenant Beauchamp, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Are you ready to begin?
Yes, ma'am.
Your 5 minutes begins now.
Good evening, task force members. The police department stands by its position in the April 2nd letter we provided to the requester, stating that Government Code 7923-600A does allow us to exempt the map of the location of the ALPR cameras. We stated that this exemption is for any investigatory or security file compiled by any state or local police agency. The California Public Records Act does not define what a security file or an investigative file is. We go on to state that the statute's plain meaning leads us to conclude that the ALPR maps qualify as security files. The maps are created to ensure the security, integrity, and safety of the system and the personnel who operate it. Releasing these maps would expose the system to vandalism or disruption, could expose engineers to harassment or attack during the installation, implementation, or maintenance of the project, and could allow criminals to avoid detection armed with the knowledge of potential system blind spots. The court case cited by the requester does not actually apply to the implementation of a security map or a map of locations for ALPR. The Supreme Court case that the requester is citing spoke about the raw data and the redacted data for ALPR cameras. And even in that case, the Supreme Court found that unredacted raw data could be held exempt under the security file exemption. Plainly stated, the law is on the police department's side. If we were to release a map of where these cameras were located within the confines of the city and county of San Francisco, it would allow those who are looking to do untoward actions towards the citizenry or the businesses located there within know about the location and thus circumvent the very purpose that these cameras were put in place for. There are basic government codes such as California Civil Code 1798.90.51 that requires all agencies to maintain reasonable security procedures and practices, including operational, administrative, technical, and physical safeguards to protect ALPR information from unauthorized access, destruction, use, modification, or disclosure. A research of various Bay Area counties and other law enforcement agencies statewide not reveal any other law enforcement agency that specifically identifies where their ALPR cameras are. The clearinghouse that we work with, the Northern California Regional Intelligence Center, on their own website specifically states that, pardon me one second, the revealing of these cameras is not provided. If subjects engaged in violent or serial criminal activities are made aware of the location of the devices, they could take measures to avoid detection. So seeing as no other law enforcement agency reveals this location, and the fact that we are within our rights under Government Code Section 7923 and Civil Code 1798, along with Dixon versus Superior Court and Northern California Police Practices Project versus Craig, all of these cases and laws provide the police department with the ability to exempt this specific information. Information that can be required, whether it be in the policy or in the California Public Records Act, can be disclosed in an anonymized form, but not the specific map of where the location of these cameras are. And with that, I submit.
Thank you, Lieutenant Beauchamp. Is anybody online or in the room in support of the respondent?
We have no one in the room and no one online.
All right, thank you. The matter is before us, members. Member Pilpop.
Well, this is interesting stuff.
Very interesting.
I believe that we asked a few months back for our deputy city attorney to give us some advice about the state Public Records Act law enforcement exemption and how that runs with the Sunshine Ordinance law enforcement exemption. I think it's the old 6254.
Yes, I was scratching my head. Do you know what case that was?
I don't offhand, but there are a number of things that we've been dealing with recently involving the police, not specific to cameras. This is, I think, the first one on cameras that I can remember.
This is the second one.
Like I said, it may be the second one on cameras. Regardless of that advice, which we haven't received yet, I have not been deeply involved in cameras, but I have followed the Committee on Information Technology and its subcommittee that has dealt with the surveillance impact report and the surveillance technology policies under Admin Code 19B, which I'm sure you've spent time with and are familiar with. I had a couple of questions for Mr. Lataki and maybe a couple for Lieutenant Beauchamp. So on your original request from March 22nd, I believe, elements of that were referenced, I think, in the March 26th email or response from Lieutenant Beauchamp, but I'm not sure that we have your original March 22nd request in its native format.
The request is encapsulated in the SFPD's determination letter.
Okay. It might help.
Let me stop you on that point. So, Administrator Peterson, this is one thing I've talked about with Victor and Cheryl. I think it's so important to have that original request be front and center. It should be the very first document because everything we do is based on that, and the scope of what we do is based on that. And like Member Pilpel said, or the petitioner responded, it's buried on like page 23 within the police department's response. And thank you, police department, for including that in all of your responses. However, we should not have to go looking for it. It should be pulled out and put right there, index 1, original request, not the intake form, not our summary. The original raw document needs to be right at the top going forward. On the other hand, I'll say your indexing is fabulous for everything I've seen today. Keep up that good work. But if we can just add that one piece, that would be wonderful. Carry on, Member Pilpel.
Okay.
I just want to add one more point. Also, for indexing from these portals, at least in my experience, I've seen a lot of times the actual request gets truncated or there's like a word limit. So you may download, but if it's exceeding the word limit, it doesn't appear. So yeah, I agree with Chair Highland that we should have the original request front and center as it is.
Thank you, Member Kumar.
And
Noted.
Thanks, Administrator Peterson. Member Pilpel, back to you.
And sometimes just either the timeline or the back and forth. Here's what I requested. Here's what they provided. Here's what my response was. Here's what their counter response. Just to follow that can sometimes be helpful. But back on this thing, I did note that following your back and forth for a bit, Mr. Lotaki, that you pursued a supervisor of records inquiry with the city attorney. I didn't see a response to that. I'm very eager to hear how they responded. Not that that's dispositive for us, but it's informative. Have you gotten a response yet?
I have not gotten
Attorney Land?
I have not gotten any response.
Okay. Have they acknowledged it, and is it in their queue?
They have not acknowledged it.
Oh. Could you maybe follow up with them and find out where they are in their process?
I can.
That would be useful. I'm presuming that they're not going to, within 5 minutes say you're absolutely right or you're absolutely wrong. I think that this is, just as complicated for them as for the police and for us. which is why I'm interested in how they address it. So if you can let us know when you get more information on that, that would be useful.
I can definitely let the committee know. However, I will say that if the custodian refuses or if the supervised records does not act upon the petition, this task force still does have jurisdiction. And so I would ask that the matter wait.
It doesn't take it away from us. It's just informative.
Got it. I will add that as supplemental material.
Right.
Question.
Oh,
Member Kubar?
How many days has it been since you haven't got a response?
I submitted that.
April 6th. That's the date here.
If that's the date on it, then that's correct. So
that's almost 2 months.
It's been my understanding that they don't actually take 10 days, that they take significantly longer. However, I was not going to hold appearing before this committee simply because they took longer.
Years ago, we did ask them to at least initially acknowledge a response, acknowledge a petition, and give the petitioner some understanding of how quickly they would get to it. And, it may be that it didn't go to the right, whatever. If you can follow up with Jen Court or somebody in city attorney land and just say, hey, I sent this back in April, you can just tell me where you are. That would be a good start. Okay. So on, and I'm being careful in not asking why you're interested. I don't care why you're interested. You're interested. That's good. I'm glad you're interested. There are different ways to get at the information that I think you're looking for. There's a map that would show each location. There might also be a list of locations, right?
If I may, outside of the scope of this complaint, there have also been requests to the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency and the Public Utility Commission, both of which host the poles that these are installed on. Similar requests, they were denied under the same government code exemption, and then also the one related to evidence code of this information being shared to the SFMTA by the SFPD for law enforcement purposes. So I have attempted to get it, and okay. I would say that SFMTA is even less of a leg to stand on than the SFPD, but this is the first step.
I would be somewhat fascinated if MTA or PUC are now claiming to be law enforcement agencies that can avail themselves of a law enforcement exemption. I might understand that if the PD asserts that, and we could argue that, but they're kind of clearly a law enforcement agency. MTA and PUC, not so much, not in the same way. So keep us posted on that. But where I'm going with this is on the locations, right? There are some that are, pretty obvious. You can see the camera on a pole at X location, right? I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, and this is where I'm going to ask Lieutenant Beauchamp in a second. And let me do that now. So, Lieutenant Beauchamp, on the ALP, can we just call them ALPR cameras for the moment?
Fine by me, sir.
Okay. They are on poles of various agencies, but the entire program is run by the police department. Is that correct? Is that not easy to answer?
It's not exactly easy to answer. So ALPR cameras will be both fixed and mobile.
Okay.
And the entirety of the program will be collected by the SFPD, but I believe there are still some pre-existing cameras that were run under like the defunct SF Safe and other like Union Square Association.
Why don't we not talk about SF Safe tonight?
Okay.
And why don't we not worry about what do you call it, BIDs or what's the other name for them?
I understand where you're going. So
Yeah.
to temper my answer,
Yeah.
SFPD will have the lion's share, but I don't believe they will have all responsibility for all cameras.
Okay. So to Mr. Lataki for a second, for purpose of this discussion, could we be most focused on the fixed cameras?
Yeah, so my original request was for fixed or semi-fixed. I'm happy to constrain that just to fixed. I'm not looking to get into records related to the mobile ALPR.
Okay, or people walking around with whatever. If it's on a pole, if it's taking. Okay.
Correct. Pole-mounted flock safety
Okay.
cameras is all I'm interested in right now.
And I did not read any of your requests to say that you were actually looking for, what do you call it? License plates or video or footage or any of that. You were kind of looking for a list of the locations where fixed cameras are located.
Correct.
Okay. That's okay. So to Lieutenant Beauchamp on that, are most or all of those cameras that we're now referring to installed by the police department or by some other city department or contractor for the police department? I mean, is that part of the program? Is that part of the program a police department program?
I'm sorry, could you?
Yeah. The fixed cameras, are those, if that thing could be called a program, would that be a police department program?
I believe the fixed cameras that will be used specifically for ALPR will be part of this program.
Okay. So however here's where I'm going. However the money was handled to put them up, whether it was grant funding or city funding or whatever funding, presumably that was budgeted money and was spent to put up a camera somewhere. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes, I believe we actually included some data regarding the funding.
Okay. So if someone were to ask for the details of that budget or the ultimate work order, if somebody went out there and physically put up a camera and attached it to a pole, somebody got paid for that, and there's got to be paperwork somewhere saying at this corner, this work got done and it got paid for by the city. Would there be a record to support that? And if so, would you suspect that such a record would be subject to disclosure if it's a police department record?
To that, I cannot speculate. I don't know.
Good answer. Good answer.
Yeah, I can't speculate to that.
Okay.
Member Kumar?
Let me think a bit, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a question for the lieutenant. So about the map. So you have admitted that the map, I mean, it's a map of all installed cameras, which are visible to everybody. So what is, I just want to understand, you are saying that does the map include information of cameras that are about to be installed in a new location? Like, does it include that information?
Well, so my understanding is that not every camera has been put up yet. Cameras have been put up, but some other cameras are still pending to be based upon heat maps, basically where crimes have been occurring and should be occurring to put them in the most advantageous areas.
So is it possible to pull out from your map just the locations of places where the maps are currently in place? I'm sure there must be a filter or something to do that.
Again, that's where we fall upon the exemption. The very idea of putting up a map would defeat the purpose of the cameras themselves. If we told you exactly where a policeman was going to be, the very first thing that a criminal would be doing is not being in that location and would go to the location where they weren't.
Hold on. So you're saying there's data about the police being at that location as well in the maps?
No, I'm making that inference that if we were to put up a location of exactly where each camera was, it would defeat the purpose of why those cameras are in place, which is to capture the individuals who are committing crimes and then fleeing the area. The purpose of those SDR cameras is to capture license plate data in order to be able to locate individuals who are committing crimes or who will be committing crimes.
Member Kumar, I think what he's trying to say is there are fixed cameras and mobile cameras, presumably on police officers' vehicles, bodies, whatnot. I don't know, but I think there's two things they're talking about there. And I think Member Kumar's question, Lieutenant Beauchamp, is surely if you have fixed cameras that have already been installed in plain view of the public, where is the security risk in revealing those locations?
When taken in isolation, a single camera which is open and available to be seen in the public is perfectly fine for individuals to observe. However, when you take the entirety and the totality of the system, being able to say, oh, I see that the Market Street corridor from the 800 to the 500 block is monitored, but not Mission Street, that defeats the purposes of the cameras, which then would either require more cameras to be installed, thus defeating the requester's purpose of not wanting to be observed, as we would have to install cameras across every city street, or we would lead to situations where individuals would know exactly which streets to avoid, which would make the purpose of the system moot and thus a waste of taxpayer money.
Or you install cameras everywhere, of which only 20% actually work, the rest are dummies. I mean, I'm being facetious here, but
Well, that's what BART did for a long time on their,
On the
cameras
buses.
inside BART cars.
yeah. So let me direct the committee to think about what will help us at the full task force, because I think this is something that's certainly not consent agenda. I think this needs to be unpacked a little bit more. However, I don't want us to go down any rabbit holes, and I certainly don't want the full task force to even consider this until we have a full memo from the DCA specifically referencing Code 19B, as well as the other one here referenced, which is the 600A code. I think those need to be looked at with reference to the Sunshine Charter and see how everything stacks up. So that's the direction I'm going on this. We could sit here and talk about this for a long time, but really until those questions are answered, it doesn't behoove us to go down too many channels. So on that note, Member Pilpel.
I just want to spend another couple of minutes, not hours,
Yeah,
but a couple of minutes on this.
and trying to think about what would, outside of that, what else would help the full task force in its deliberations.
I was going to encourage Mr. Lotaki, if he hasn't, to be in touch with the staff of the Committee on Information Technology. There is a privacy analyst there. I think his name is Danny Vang. I have not spoken to him personally, but anyway, when the city recommends and reviews the SIRs and the STPs under 19B, they have a model and they go through and discuss the use cases and whatnot. I mean, I think you'd find it interesting how they, ask departments, what are you planning to do? Who would have access? Why do you need this? Blah, blah, blah. How do the ALPRs that the police department use differ from those that the airport or War Memorial or Rec Park have? Why do different departments have some and not all? There's a lot that you can get into in terms of privacy as relates to license plate reading cameras and state law and all kinds of things. Sounds like you're into this.
Yes.
That's good. I would encourage you to also ask in ways that maybe you haven't yet, as I suggested, how these things got put up, who paid, at some point you may be able to track down. And if they want to say, we can't give you that, you want to know why. And that's interesting. I would suggest to the police department when we get more into this, I certainly am not in favor in general of disclosing, surveillance data as in video, as in blah, 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 right? Unless there's a good reason to do so. But at the same time, I don't see the harm that Lieutenant Beauchamp, that you're suggesting from the we don't have cameras everywhere. Guess what? I agree we don't have cameras everywhere, but we also publish maps of like where our 10 district police stations are. And I don't know that increases or decreases the amount of crime. The Tenderloin police station is pretty well known, and yet there seems to be a fair amount of crime in the Tenderloin. Like, within a block or two of where the Tenderloin police station is. So just knowing where facilities or services are doesn't seem to have a direct correlation to increasing or decreasing public safety as a result. If we were to find that there are more cameras in the Western Addition, the Tenderloin, the Mission, and the east side of town compared to the Richmond and the Sunset, that may well be true. That wouldn't surprise me, but I don't think, I don't find the same kind of correlation or harm that's being suggested. And I think the public interest in knowing where the money was spent to deploy cameras based on some criteria or belief is useful. It's not inconsequential. And this is not like a 30-cent program that we've spent millions apparently investing in cameras to hopefully increase public safety. So I'm having trouble with the general assertion that the location of cameras is itself a security file within the meaning of the law. So that's where I am right now.
Thank you, Member Pilpel. Member
Okay.
Kumar?
Comment. Just wanted to urge the committee and also the larger task force to maybe, like, this is a very interesting case, and to understand these kind of cases where, you know, city departments might be saying it falls as a security concern, falls under state law, but does it actually fall under state law? Just looking at these kind of cases where, you know, government departments, I'm not saying in this case, but in some other cases, they might be, you know, bracketing stuff under state law, whereas it actually might be part of the Sunshine Ordinance. So just a request to maybe think about these kind of cases when they come up.
Thank you. So, you know, unless I'm mistaken, I think we're leading towards simultaneously referring this to the full task force for full deliberation and requesting our DCA to provide a memo. I'll give you specifics on that in a second, Pat. If that's the case, can we proceed to rebuttals? You guys ready for that?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. In which case, Lieutenant Beauchamp, you have 3 minutes to give us rebuttals, followed by Mr. Lotaki. Ms. Peterson, please let Lieutenant Beauchamp know when you're ready.
Lieutenant Beauchamp, are you ready for your 3 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Your 3 minutes begins now.
Again, the police department's position from its letter to Mr. Lataki has not changed. We feel that both California Public Records Act 7923-600, Sunshine Ordinance 6724 D4, and prevalent case law, including the one cited by Mr. Lataki, ACLU versus LA Superior, all cite that state law enforcement agencies have the right to have security files that are exempted from public access. The state's own Northern California Regional Intelligence Center identifies that ALPR maps are not to be released to the public. No other law enforcement agency that I was able to locate has revealed specific locations of where their ALPR cameras exist. Based upon state law, local ordinance, prevailing case law, and other law enforcement agencies in the area, San Francisco Police Department believes that its position of exempting this information is firmly established. And with that, the police department submits.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lataki, are you ready for your 3 minute rebuttal?
Yes.
Your 3 minutes begins now.
Thank you. Firstly, I will refute that no other agency in the Northern California area publishes the locations. Foster City and South San Francisco have on their website the locations of their cameras. I'm intimately familiar with Foster City as I used to work there, and they do post the locations. Additionally, the respondents here have the burden of proof to show specifically why this map is a security file. And other than a hand-waving explanation and generalities, they haven't met that burden. And lastly, I would really like to touch on the fact that these cameras are in plain view. They look very distinctive from traditional security cameras. They are large, they are noticeable, they contain solar panels that make them even more noticeable than the cameras themselves. The same public view doctrine or the same plain view doctrine that allows the presumed constitutionality of these programs and what allows law enforcement to capture this data is also what allows the data to see where this data is being, or where allows the public to see where this data is coming from. I have already spotted over 15 of these cameras throughout my time. They're very distinctive looking. So the notion that criminals will avoid locations where these cameras are is truthfully speculative. It actually sounds a lot like justification under the catch-all exemption, which I don't think the police department would win on that front either. And so with that, I submit.
Thank you. Mr. Lataki. Would anyone like to?
So this is not, I'm not sure I'm prepared to recommend finding a violation. I'm certainly not prepared to recommend finding no violation. I think this is, as Chair Hyland indicated, one where we recommend finding jurisdiction, finding that the records are public, not necessarily that they're subject to disclosure, but that the records at issue are public records, and that we recommend that the full task force hold a hearing on the matter, that we request the city attorney to give us some advice, and maybe that we request some more information, some more specific information from both the petitioner and the respondent. Is something along those lines the motion you're looking for?
Everything but the last part.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll take what I can get.
So I will second that motion. Hold on.
Question, may I have a
Yeah.
clarification on the advice being requested from the deputy city attorney?
Yeah, I'll flesh that out more for you. So
Yeah.
why didn't I make the formal motion? Motion is to that we find jurisdiction. We find the records to be public documents. We recommend consideration of the full task force, period. We also recommend that the city attorney provide us a analysis of the case law in this matter in relation to the Sunshine Charter, specifically. And you can look at the three things I cite in their January 2nd letter, or rather, hold on, April 2nd letter. But basically, put my finger on it. So it's Government Code 7923.600A.
7923.
7923.600 brackets A.
And can someone clarify, is that essentially the old 6254K?
6254F, but yes.
Yeah, like I said, F. Thank you.
Otherwise known as?
The law enforcement exemption, the generalized law enforcement exemption under the California Public Records Act.
Which used to be?
Which was 6254F and is now recodified at 7923.600A.
Okay. 19B was also mentioned.
Yes, but I think we were looking for the 7923.600 versus 24 the Sunshine Ordinance provision about law enforcement information. 67.24.
I'm actually not familiar. I don't think
I'll go pull it.
Okay. Hold on, Pat.
And how this relates to 19B. Yes.
Right. So hold on, Pat. We're going to summarize this for you. I mean, the city attorney is going to know what to look at, but basically 24D. Okay. So Government Code. I lost it here.
You'll further flesh this out in an email to the city attorney.
No, I want to do
No?
it right now.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is what I wanted to, get to the city attorney at the same time.
Fine. Okay.
And I believe our administrators will send this to the city attorney, so I want to give them all the details.
Okay.
Why is this not coming up? Okay, here we go. All right, so you have the first piece, right? 6923.600.a, 7923.
Slower.
Yeah, Government Code Section 7923.600 brackets A,
Got it?
right? And we don't have to add the confusing stuff about what it used to be called. How it relates to
67.24D
D of the Sunshine
ordinance
Ordinance,
and Chapter 19B of the Administrative Code.
comma, and case law cited in this record,
Fair enough.
period. We also recommend that Chair Yankee does not schedule this before the full task force until said memo is complete. Because that's happened before too.
Mr. Lotaki, you
Actually, hold
understand
on.
that means we're going to want to do it right rather than do it quickly.
I understand.
I wanted to add one line. So after all the citations, period, the task force also asks the DCA to look at both the technology and the data provided by the technology as public record, right? So we had a discussion about cameras themselves and what they produce. That's more down the road. That'll inform us on other things. I mean, right now it's just about the map of those cameras. That's what this case is about. However, we're also curious as to
Right. Existence and location as opposed to the data that the system generates.
right, but
Those are-
I'm also curious about the data the system
Right.
generates.
But
that's not what he's asking. He's just
Right.
asking for the
He's
location.
asking for the location
But we're-
information.
right.
But you're thinking down the road.
Yeah.
Right. But those are separate and distinct and yet can be. Okay.
Right.
There will be a future request for the data.
Right. So why don't we get ahead of that? So Pat, let me restate that. So after all the citations, you have the 4 citations, right? The 3 codes plus the case law. Okay, period.
Yes, clarification about the statement following the code citations. The task force asked the DCA to look at
Okay.
technology. What
Right.
look at?
Hold on, I'll restate it. So in addition to whether
To advise as relates to both the location
no,
of cameras.
Let me state it. So this case is about the document regarding the map of these cameras. The task force is also asking DCA to examine the data from these cameras and to advise on whether these will then become public records. So let's go all the way down the rabbit hole, because that's where this is all leading, essentially. All right. Okay. I think we gave him enough there, and there might be other things that the DCA will opine on, but I think that's enough direction for them.
It's a bit of a homework assignment.
It is, but this is very interesting, and this is going to be seminal to other work that we do.
Before we vote on this, and I'm assuming that I ended up making the restated motion that you seconded as you recrafted, and that's fine.
Right.
I would just ask, again, both sides, if Mr. Lotaki has some further specifics on other jurisdictions, if you have the map from Foster City or whoever. I don't need to see it right now, but I'm saying if you have that, if you can provide that to us for the file, if you have, if you've done a letter to Foster City saying, I see the map. Can you give me a list of the locations? And if they say, yes, we can, here they are, flying cloud and
I think
flying-
you mentioned it's posted online. That's what I heard.
right. He said that the map was. I didn't hear the specific.
It was actually just the locations, not a picture map.
All right,
It was the
whatever.
intersections.
Whatever they have, if they say that we can and here it is, or we can't and here's why, that might be interesting. And if there are other jurisdictions in the Bay Area that either have or haven't, that might be interesting. I mean, I think that this is an issue that's still in debate in some circles, and that's okay. That would be helpful. And again, just sort of reinforcing that what you're looking for is just the locations. It's not video. It's not license plates. It's not times a day. None of that. It's just, tell me there's a pole at 9th and Howard that I can see with my own eyes. There you go. And then to the police department, to Lieutenant Beauchamp and others, and I saw a new name in the packet, I guess there's a staff attorney in your group there.
Mr. Betts?
Yep. Was not familiar with that name before, but that's fine. The more you can tell us before this gets as this gets to the full task force, why, not just that you believe, but why you believe that disclosure of the location information would somehow harm the police's ability to do what you do would be helpful. I'm not saying it's going to persuade one way or the other, but it would be helpful. I think just asserting that it would be, in our case, isn't quite cutting it here. You need to tell us a little more about why you think that's true.
Okay. Do you want us to do that only with our staff attorney, or would you like us to involve the city attorney assigned to the police department as well?
However you see fit to make the argument.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think it needs 100 pages, but I think it needs a little either examples or general or whatever, do it in a way that you think would help us.
Yeah, I think ultimately our DCA is also going to probably look at, the public's right to know balanced against this kind of catch-all exemption. And it's the catch-all part of it that I'm not comfortable with. I like to see more specifics, which I'm not convinced yet they've provided. So,
and I don't, and in case I haven't made it clear, I think I did. I'm not interested, and I don't think the task force is interested in making it easier for the criminals to commit crime. I think we are interested in the public knowing where public dollars have been spent on surveillance technology that arguably is helping prevent or deter crime. That's all. So, I'm not looking for a video feed. I'm not looking for a license plates. So if you can help us understand again better why you think that even that the location of obviously installed cameras somehow harms us, I'd like to read that.
okay, thank you. All right. Administrator Peterson, do you have a succinct summary of the motion? Would you like to repeat it for us, and then we can put that out for public comment?
And I'm sorry, who moved and who seconded?
We'll say Member Pilpel moved and I seconded. He introduced it.
And you refined it, and thank you.
And you re-refined it. Thank you.
The action moved by Member Pilpel, seconded by Chair Hyland, to find that the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force has jurisdiction over the matter, that the requested records are public, and refer the matter to the full task force
For discussion. For discussion. Period.
Well, it's not just discussion, it's for a hearing.
Right. Discussion and action.
Okay.
For discussion and action, but we're not recommending any.
Refer the matter to the full task force for discussion and action.
we also request,
The committee.
the committee also requests RDCA, et cetera.
Provide an analysis of Government Code 7923-600 sub A, 67 sub D, and 6724 sub D, and the case law cited in this record in relation to the Sunshine Charter, the Sunshine Ordinance.
Ordinance. Hold on, that was a bit.
There's some redundancy in there.
Yeah, so,
We'll clean that out.
well, no, let's do it now. So,
This force also asks that the DCA examine both the technology and the data provided by the technology as to whether it will become public record.
so go back to the previous sentence, Pat. The task force also requests our DCA do an analysis of Government Code 7923.600A, 6724D. What's the 19B? Is that admin code?
Yeah.
Admin code 19B, comma, and the case law cited in the matter, period. Additionally, provide an analysis of the data that will be produced from this technology as a public record, or provide analysis of the data provided by this technology and whether it would be a public record and subject to exemption. That's the additional question.
No, and
Do you want to restate that?
yeah.
Thank you.
The data resulting from this technology and whether the public records generated from that data would be subject to disclosure.
Okay.
Additionally, the task force asked the DCA to examine the data resulting from this technology and whether the public record will be subject to disclosure.
Whether that data would be subject to public disclosure. Good enough.
Yeah.
Examine the data resulting from this technology and whether that data will be subject to public disclosure.
I can move it.
Great. Okay. Lastly,
Further recommendation that Chair Yankee will not schedule this matter until the DCA memo is received.
correct. Okay, good. Got it. All right. And when you're ready, we'll take some public comment on all of that.
If there's any member of the public in the room, please approach the podium to make public comment on item 5, file number 24021. Members of the online community, please raise your hand in the app or press *3. We have no one online and no one in the room approaching the podium.
All right. Public comment is closed. Let's take a roll.
Taking the vote. Member Pilpel.
Aye.
Member Pilpel, aye. Chair Hyland.
Aye.
Chair Hyland, aye. Member Kumar.
Aye.
Member Kumar, aye. 3 ayes, the motion passes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Taki. Thank you, Lieutenant Beauchamps, for being here.
Thank you.
To be continued. Thank you.
I'm sure we'll see you again.
Yeah. That's very interesting.
That video.
Item 6. Item 6, file number 24022. Complaint filed by Paul Neha against the Municipal Transportation Agency for allegedly violating the Administrative Code Sunshine Ordinance, Section 67.21, by failing to respond to a records request in a timely and/or complete manner. We have Mr. Hank Wilson from the SFMTA who has been added as a panelist. Mr. Neha, if you are online, would you raise your hand, please, in the app? Press *3 or raise your hand using the app. Caller number 415-205. Are you Mr. Neha?
Yes, I am.
One moment, please. Mr. Neha, you have also been added as a panelist. We have both parties present.
Could you repeat that?
I was indicating to the members of the committee that we have both parties present for the item.
Okay, thank you.
And it's Hank Wilson for MTA?
Yes, he said himself. All right, Ms. Peterson, when you're ready.
Yes, we're ready.
Let Mr. Neha know he can start.
Mr. Neha, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Your 5 minutes begins now.
Okay, thank you. My name is Paul Kniha, and the matter in front of you is regarding the series of activities that SFMTA has engaged into in order to limit public participation in the color curve public hearings and to reduce accountability. In the past, automatically generated transcripts of the hearings were provided upon request, but after they have been used in complaints against the agency, showing numerous violations that the agency has been committing on a regular basis in order to reduce their accountability and responsibility, the SFMTA had took measures specifically to stop providing those transcripts upon request. With my request, I send a picture showing the automated message that popped up on my screen when I was present at the public hearing that said that Ahmed Siddiqui has started the transcription and the recording of the public hearing. And when I requested those documents, the agency claimed that they do not have that transcript. I justify in the past that the transcripts are produced automatically by Microsoft Teams software, and as indicated by a pop-up window, like I said, the evidence of which I provided with this request. And yet the agency still continues to claim that they supposedly do not have that transcript. I believe it is another of many lies that SFMTA is so used to at this point. And I don't think they should be able to get away with this. The transcript of the public hearing is the record. It is a public record. The public has the right to have access to the document that can be used in the future as a matter of as a platform in which to document all of the activity that SFMTA is doing and they shouldn't be doing. They know that, and that's why they intentionally hide it and they intentionally lie, claiming they do not have that record, even though they do. That's the end.
Thank you. Is there anybody speaking on behalf of the petitioner? I see no one in the room.
And we have no one online indicating their wish to speak.
Okay. When you're ready, Ms. Peterson, let the respondent know.
I'm sorry, you're ready for Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson, are you ready for your 5 minutes?
Yes, I am. Thanks.
Your 5 minutes begins now.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, committee members. My name is Hank Wilson. I'm the parking policy manager at the San Francisco MTA. this, I guess for a little context, Mr. Kaniha attends virtually every monthly color curb hearing, asks a lot of questions at those hearings, and then once the hearing is completed, he sends a public records request for all documents and communications related to the hearing, including the video recording and the transcript, in addition to several other public records requests that he sends on a weekly basis about the color curb program and the color curb. We are not withholding the transcript. Microsoft Teams does not automatically record a written transcript, even when a video recording is made. I've tested it out on my own Microsoft Teams, on my work Teams account, and my work Teams account does not automatically create a written transcript. But what it does do is the message that Mr. Kaniha has sent as part of this complaint does pop up and saying record and transcript are being created, even though only a video record is being created. We're not intentionally withholding the transcript. We don't have the transcript. Every month, Mr. Kaniha sends these public records requests. We provide him every document that we have regarding the hearing and the communications. We also provide him the video recording of the hearing, so he has a full and complete record of the hearing. We don't have the transcript, and that's why we're not producing it, because it doesn't exist. And since we're not required to create any new records, and we don't have the transcript, that's why we're not producing it. I think this is the third or fourth time that Mr. Kaniha has brought a Sunshine Ordinance Task Force complaint about the color curb hearing transcript. I think the previous ones went to the complaint committee, so this may be the first time you have heard it. But this is the same thing that we do every month. And the same answer as we always have is that the transcript doesn't exist. So that's what I've got. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody here? There's nobody in the room. Is there anybody online speaking on behalf of the respondent?
No one online has their hand raised.
Thank you. All right, members, the matter is before you.
Okay, member Pilpel here. So it's a it's a small world after all. Whereas my understanding is that Mr. Kaniha attends attends virtually all of the color curb hearings. I don't attend the color curb hearings. I attend virtually all of the traffic engineering hearings on alternate Fridays, and have for a long time, although I missed the last one. So I know a number of the individuals named and involved here. I just want to go to the timeline if we're going with the next request. Information here going backwards from page 9 of the next request stuff, page 15 in the packet. If the request was received on March 29th, and that would kind of make sense if this was from the same day as the color curb hearing on March 29th. Then moving up, April 1st was invoking the initial 10-day period for a response. That would take it out to April 11th, I believe, or is that April 15th? Those two. That huge document response on April 8th, back up to April 15th, and then April 16th. So I guess what I'm trying to understand, and maybe Mr. Wilson, if you can help us for a second, did I get those dates right?
I don't have personal knowledge about that, but that it does look like that's what's in the next request system.
So tell me if looking at that, if April 16th tracks to be timely, because it looks to me like it might not be timely even with the 10-day extension from April 1st based on a March 29th initial request. I believe that the April 8th stuff was probably timely, but I'm having trouble on April 15th and in particular on April 16th.
Yeah, I also don't know off the top of my head that whether it's calendar days or business days. I would say if it's business days, as you pointed out, it would be April 15th is the due date. The 16th is one day after April 15th. So
yeah, so maybe not.
Not a huge difference. I will say that we, as I mentioned, we receive a really substantial number of public records requests from Mr. Kaniha, and our city attorneys have advised us that we have invoked the rule of reason where we spend a set amount of time of staff time each week responding to the requests. And so I think there have been some cases where we have continued to produce documents after the deadline,
Okay.
or what would have been the deadline. And we've informed, Mr. Kaniha is well aware of that we are every week constantly searching for finding and producing documents, but that because of the volume of the requests and
I get all that, but I'm not seeing in our packet on this particular case any communication invoking the rule of reason and indicating how much time is being spent, yada yada. I mean, I get that concept. You know that I get that. I'm just not seeing that in front of us here. Can you also tell me for a second, starting on page 18 of the packet, the letter dated May 8th to Chair Yankee over here? That's 4 pages of what and where and whatnot.
If you look at page 14, Caroline Celaya does restate the requests. Our department will identify and compile the request information, Sunshine Ordinance requires departments to respond as soon as possible
April 8th.
or within 10 days. Yeah, April 8th. And then it looks like they did send a bunch of stuff on a rolling basis all the way up through April 16th. That's what I'm seeing. Are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, well, hold on. But she's saying that we'll get back to you by on or before April 8th. And there was a bunch of stuff produced on April 8th. It's the stuff that was after April 8th that I'm having the issue with. She said April 8th. Nowhere in there is the rule of reason discussed. And what I was about to ask on the May 8th letter of 4 pages, I don't see a signature. I don't know who, and I don't see an email cover on that. So I don't know who authored or who approved the May 8th communication. Was that?
Well, the May 8th is MTA's response to our new form, which we're sending out to.
That's fine. Who did it come from?
That's the problem. Our form doesn't require anyone to sign off on it yet. So that's an oversight that we probably should.
Mr. Wilson, can you tell me if this May 8th letter came from you, Ms. Celaya, somebody else at MTA? Are you familiar with this May 8th communication?
Yeah, it says below are the questions listed in the task force instructions for responding to complaints, which is great. You get points for answering it, but we don't get points for not including a signatory in there.
Yeah, I just don't know who.
So, Mr. Wilson, can you answer? Did you prepare this?
Yeah, I honestly don't remember. I've prepared so many of these in response to Mr. Kaniha's public records requests. Okay. But I mean, typically it's a collaborative effort, and there's.
Gotcha.
Okay. If you can just get back to Ms. Celaya or whoever that when the department sends in something like this May 8th, it's good to have a signature. And
I disagree. This is on us because they're responding directly to our requests to respondents. We need to correct this on our site. or both?
Either way, both of them, all of the above.
Okay.
Okay. In any event.
Or maybe
I mean, despite the repeated requests and for whatever reason, this is all happening. And I think we learned a bit about this with the first couple of matters earlier this year. I think it's on MTA to understand the request, to timely respond. And
let me ask this, Member Hooper. If
Yeah.
on that April 8th communication from Ms. Zelaya, if she had said there, we'll try and get the documents to you by April 8th. However, some may continue to come on a rolling basis. How would you then feel?
differently. And
Okay.
it depends if
Because honestly,
if they have a basis, the items that were submitted after April 8th, if you go from page 10 backwards,
right.
and I don't know on page 9 what IMG 4144.jpg is. It's probably a photo. It's certainly a JPG image, JPEG image, but I don't know what it shows. If these other documents on April 15th color curb hearing posting note, I don't know what that is.
So
Maybe it's an email. It seems like it could.
Yeah.
That those are documents that could have been provided, perhaps could have been provided by April 8th, and I suspect that that they were just untimely.
Right.
That's all.
Here's the thing. So I'm looking at the original request, two parts. One, the video recording. Second, and this is the part that all communications to do with the color curb hearing of March 29th, but not included, and it's kind of a catch-all.
Yep.
That there alone would certainly invoke the rule of reason, would invoke a rolling basis of providing things. I think the fact that they provided number one and a fair part of number two by April 8th, I'm okay with that. And I don't want to punish a department just for the fact that not all of it got there within 10 days, right? I mean, I don't know. In many cases, we have, for the record, gone ahead and pushed through a violation just to show it happened. But I'm not really feeling it in this case. That's just me. But I'd be curious to see what
I'm not
members think. And then, yeah, I wanted to give Mr. Kaniha a moment to respond because
It's fine.
we give Mr. Wilson some time. So, Mr. Kaniha, did you want to comment on what we're discussing?
Sorry, this is Mr. Wilson. Just
Okay,
real
let's
if you look at
yeah,
I
let's
would
go.
just say,
Let's go to
pertinent-
Mr. Let's go to Mr.
directly to
Kaniha first.
your questions, if you look at
Mr.
page
Wilson, Mr. Wilson, hold on one second.
there is a message on April 8th saying that from Ms. Zelaya saying that we will provide documents on a rolling basis if you look at page 10 of the packet.
Oh, good.
So,
Okay.
I just wanted to, sorry, before we go too far down that road, I wanted to let you know that that's there.
Page 10. Page 10 at the bottom of the page.
No, in the middle. Message to requester.
No, I mean, I'm looking at the number 10, not
yeah,
the
yeah.
PDF, but the,
Yes, got it.
okay, there it is. Continue to locate and review, very good. Okay, now April 8th. So now I'm more leading on this side. Mr. Kaniha, I want to give you a chance to jump in. It sounded like you had something to add here.
Sure. I recognize that this was a pretty large request, and I didn't necessarily expect to receive all of the information necessarily within 10 days. And this is not the point of the complaint today. The complaint is that the agency is knowingly withholding the documents that they know can be used to document all of the wrongdoings that SFMTA is doing. So the matter is not the rest of the documents that the agency has obligation to disclose, and it's the matter of specifically the fact of the transcript is the documents that they used to disclose in the past, and they stopped immediately after I used it in one of the complaints.
So you're saying that a previous Microsoft Teams transcript, which they provided to you, they're now saying Microsoft Teams doesn't do that anymore. Is that your statement?
That's correct.
Okay, Mr.
So
Wilson.
they have provided those in the past, and I have used them in the past. And once I used them, so when I came to one of the hearings in the past, I was told that you can't just say that this information exists. You need to provide a transcript. So I requested a transcript, and I had it.
Right. Okay, stop right there. And how long ago was the last time they provided that transcript of a Microsoft Teams meeting to you? Like last year, last month?
It must have been within last year, but I don't remember exactly how long it was.
Okay. All right. Mr. Wilson, were you at the helm and did you provide said transcript to Mr. Kaniha in the past?
Well, I should clarify that I didn't mean to say that Microsoft Teams does not create a transcript. It will create a transcript if you ask it to. But it does not automatically create a transcript when you ask it to do a video recording. It just does a video recording, or at least in some settings in Teams, including my settings on Teams, which I have not gone in and changed regarding video recording and transcripts. It just seems to automatically be set at when I click video recording, it just does a video recording. It doesn't do a transcript. But transcripts can be done with Microsoft Teams, as far as I know. And with regard to that question, I have seen. All I can say is that I have seen Mr. Kaniha produce portions of a transcript as part of a public records request or a Sunshine Ordinance Task Force complaint.
Okay. Without getting too much into the technical side of it, are you saying that if Mr. Kaniha sent this request to your IT admin person, that they could then produce a transcript from a past Microsoft Teams meeting, or are you saying that it all depends on how the Microsoft Teams meeting is set up? In other words, if you set it up for video and transcript, you get both. If you set up for only video, you only get video, and it's not possible to get transcript after the fact?
You know, I wish I knew this detail with Microsoft Teams, but I think that you can. My understanding is that you can likely recording and a written transcript with Microsoft Teams, but in some cases you have to specifically request each of those separately. But you can also change Microsoft Teams settings so that when you click one button, it'll automatically do a video and a transcript.
So it sounds.
I mean, other than maybe, and sorry, with regard the going back and creating a transcript of a past hearing, I don't think Teams does that. I mean, I think that there is I'm sure there's technology out there that could listen to a video recording and create a transcript. But
Well, that's different. Okay, I think Member Kumar has some light on this.
Yeah, so the Microsoft support page says that for Teams meeting recordings, the transcript from Teams live transcription is copied to the video recording file, stored in OneDrive for Business or SharePoint, and supplies both the captions and transcript for the meeting recording. That's what I'm. So there is a transcript that can be produced from a video.
All right. So it sounds to me, Mr. Wilson, that perhaps this request should have been forwarded to your IT admin person for a full response, and that didn't happen. Would that be fair?
Another point.
And Member Kumar has another point to add.
There's another point here. So it's written that transcription and closed captions are automatically generated for video files uploaded to SharePoint. By default, this feature is enabled, but it can be disabled via tenant level settings using the media transcription property. So I think I would suggest they also check that if it has been disabled. By the IT team. Yeah, settings.
Okay, this is now more interesting. Member Pilpel.
So to Mr. Wilson, again, since I have not attended any of the color curve hearings, can you just enlighten us? Does MTA retain the video recording of each color curve hearing?
yes, we do, and we've turned that over to Mr. Kaniha every time he's asked for it.
Okay. And Mr. Kaniha, when you get the video recording from MTA, are you able to generate captions or a transcript from that video? Has that been possible for you?
No, I do not have that option. I receive it as a video file, and video file that has audio and video only. And transcripts used to be provided upon Sunshine request as a separate file, text file.
Okay, so back to Mr. Wilson. Do you know, or can you find out from the IT folks over there if after the fact, if after a meeting over Teams, if you can generate captions or a transcript from the video with functionality that you might have as the user or the owner of the video, as opposed to someone in Mr. Kaniha's position of just having access to the video file? Because the settings and permissions are different depending on the user's.
One more quick observation.
Yeah.
There's a point here that has to be noted. Transcript and closed caption generation are only supported for videos less than 4 GB in size. So I want to understand, was this file less than 4 GB?
Probably. I don't know.
If it's more than 4 GB, the caption cannot be generated.
I don't know.
Yeah. But if it's below 4 GB, then the transcript can be generated. That's what I wanted to add.
In any event, these are kind of IT technical questions. And I know from the traffic engineering hearings that there are glitches regularly in how Microsoft Teams operates, and it's like everything is different. You come in one week and it's set up one way. You come in a different week and it's a different way. It depends on who makes the reservation and what the settings are and permissions and yada yada and all that. So, I mean, the only consistent thing is that it's not consistent, even if the dates are the same. You know, Fridays at 10. That's all that's the same, and some of the same players. But yeah, I think there's some IT issues here to explore. But I am more persuaded upon further analysis that the dates suggest that this is more compliant than not. I mean, part of the problem is that we're just going off the next request notes and the 4-page letter dated May 8th. There isn't a lot of there's no other commentary or explanation as to whether or not this was timely, and if so, why. So we're really just trying to figure out from the very limited information before us as to whether or not there's a violation here. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't.
Member Kumar?
Yeah, just is it possible for maybe to suggest to the department?
Hold on.
I'm not driving.
Did we lose a panelist?
We did not.
Did we gain a panelist?
No, neither.
Okay. All right. Let's go back then.
Yes,
Member Kumar, go ahead.
sorry about that. I just wanted to know if we can suggest to the department to maybe get back to Mr. Neha after figuring out their IT problems and figuring out if a transcript can be generated. And if it can be generated, then just giving the transcript to Mr. Neha. And if they don't do it, even after fixing the IT issue, then it can be raised.
Mr. Wilson, does that sound like a reasonable course of action?
We can certainly talk to the department about this, but I think, you know, we've been advised that there's not a requirement to create a transcript of the hearing. And again, you know, we are providing the video recording. We are searching for all the responsive records that we have and providing.
Right.
So
You don't have to create a transcript with other software and whatnot, but if a transcript is readily available as part of the video, that's a different matter, I think. And so,
yeah, absolutely. I mean,
yeah,
I think what has happened is Mr. Kaniha asked for the transcript. We searched. We said, oh, we don't have it, so we can't provide you a transcript because it doesn't exist.
Okay,
And
so it sounds like
that's
it might,
the end of it.
it sounds like it might exist. So I think you have to ask the right person, is there a transcript readily available? And if so, I suggest you turn that over to Mr. Kaniha.
There is no transcript.
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
That's Ms. Salaya.
Oh, Ms. Sly, I didn't realize you were part of the hearing. Welcome.
Thank you.
And go ahead.
This is Caroline Sly. I'm just stepping in to say that we cannot produce a record that does not exist. And we are under no obligation to create a record. And the suggestion that we ask IT to create that record, that doesn't apply because we aren't required or obligated to create a record that does not exist. It does not
Ms.
exist.
Sly, let me stop you there. So you have provided this record in the past to this requester. So I think it's a matter of debate as to whether that record exists or not, if it's readily available within Microsoft Teams, right? If Microsoft Teams recorded this public event and created an accessible transcript.
It did not create a transcript. It did not create a transcript. That's what Hank is trying to tell you.
I think we've determined that Microsoft Teams by default does create a transcript. It's a question of whether you can pull it out or not. So that's what we're trying to get to the heart out.
That is incorrect, sir. I'm sorry. It does not automatically create a transcript. And it did not in this case. And even if staff were to disable it, there is no requirement for the agency to maintain a transcript. So we do not have this. We cannot provide something we do not have, nor are we required to ask IT to create it after the fact.
That's not what we're saying.
Okay.
Member Pilpel, go ahead.
So I'm sorry, and welcome, Caroline. It was reported earlier that for previous color curb hearings, Mr. Kaniha had requested a transcript and was provided a transcript. Did I understand that correctly?
It sounds like that is what he said, and it may very well be that a record was available at that time. Going forward, staff may have disabled that. Again, we are not required to have it, so we may no longer do transcripts, which is why we can't produce something we don't have.
Do we know if staff disabled that function?
It doesn't matter. We don't have it.
No. It does matter. I'm asking.
No, it doesn't.
Ms. Salaya, I'm finding your answers very combative and not helpful. So I suggest you take a moment and rethink what you're saying. Okay. We have determined with our research that Microsoft Teams automatically makes available a transcript along with a video recording. It might also be that even if it is disabled, it's still there and can be accessed after the fact. The fact that you provided it in the past, both video and transcript, I don't think you want to go down the road saying you intentionally disabled it to then not provide it to requesters. That's not the position you want to place yourself in. That's just friendly advice. So let's start again. I think Mr. Wilson and yourself should investigate this further with the administrator, with your IT admin, to see whether indeed you can fulfill the full nature of this request. You've done a lot, you've done a rolling basis, and you get a lot of points for what you've done. However, the second part of number one is a transcript. And that's what's at the heart of this matter. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, sir, no, because we disagree on the fact that it doesn't exist. So.
Okay. Well, then we'll most likely then take this to the full task force, and we'll consider this matter in front of the full task force. Thank you for your input. Shall we go to rebuttals? Mr. Wilson, would you like to go to rebuttals? You get to go first for 3 minutes, and then we follow with Mr. Kaniha.
Sure. Thank you again. I don't have much to add to what I've said before. And I think Mr. Kaniha made a very good point earlier that he said, the only issue right now is whether they have withheld this particular transcript. It's one transcript for one hearing. That's the only issue before this body. And there's that the transcript doesn't exist. We've searched for it. We would have produced it if it existed, but it doesn't, so we can't. So I think that's pretty much sums up the issue here. So I thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Mr. Kaniha, Ms. Peterson will let you know when she's ready.
Mr.
I'm ready.
Kaniha, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
You may begin. 5 minutes.
3 minutes.
I apologize, 3 minutes.
Sounds good. So I thank everybody for looking into this, and I think we revealed a lot of very useful information. I want to underline a couple of things. One is that this transcript has been provided in the past. Number two, that it has been used in a complaint against the agency. So the agency had all of the reasons to either not produce transcripts, not to provide them where they're requested, or to specifically disable that, because as it was mentioned earlier, those are generated automatically. That thing does not change. As been in charge, somebody who's been in charge of setting up those hearings in the past, they occur on a regular basis, so they do not have to be reserved, and it's essentially the same settings happen over and over again. The only way that the transcript is not generated is if it's specifically turned off, and if you do turn it off, then it will say on the recording that only video is being recorded. It will not say transcription and video is being produced. So that's the basic functionality of Teams. That cannot be changed. If it's recording transcription, it says that it's recording transcription. If it's recording just the video, it says it's recording just the video. It doesn't say transcription. So I took a screenshot to indicate that the recording of both transcription and video has been started by Ahmed Siddiqui, and you can examine that. You can see it, and it is, in my opinion, is very obvious that the agency is trying to hide this document, and they should not hide this document. This is the record that the record of the public hearing, the most basic record of the public hearing, and specifically it's in a format that is allowed to be used for future inquiries. So that's why I believe the agency, first of all, has this document, and second, must produce it.
Thank you. Mr. Kaniha, is that screenshot, is that included in our packet today? I think you said it was.
I don't. Okay.
Page 16?
Well, I'm not sure.
Page 16, hold on one second. Page 16, the number at the bottom of the page, or page 16
No,
PDF?
it's not a numbered page. It's the page after 15.
Respondent's request is page 17.
No, it's just before that.
I got it. That little box there.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, good. We have that.
Can I?
Member Pilpel, go ahead.
I may be a little confused here. Can someone show me Mr. Kaniha come to this task force? I see the complaint summary prepared by Patricia Peterson. I see the petitioner's complaint, which is an email. Hi, Cheryl, would like to schedule this case, blah, blah, blah. Please see the attached timeline. It's intentionally withheld the record. Okay. No, that's the request in next request, I'm not seeing like a complaint form or a complaint letter to the task force. Is it just the Hi Cheryl paragraph on page 4? Can someone help me? Is there, Mr. Kaniha, did you write up something to this task force providing anything more than the next request timeline and the screenshot?
Yeah, he says, I'd like to schedule this case to the next available committee hearing. Please assign a new case number.
Right.
That, to me, sounds...
Is that all there is from you, Mr. Kaniha?
Is that not enough?
Yes.
Usually we
That's
have
all
a
that I-
form
yeah.
or a letter or something. That's it?
Yeah,
That's
he's submitted previous cases, so I think that's enough for me.
Okay. I'm not. So,
And then
Mr. Kaniha, can you just help me understand at this point, is your issue, maybe I was off on a tangent about the timing. Is your issue not about the timeline at all? It's merely whether or not there is a transcript available, and if so, why was it not provided to you? And if there is no transcript, then we're done here? Is that where we are? Or am I misunderstanding? Can you help me?
yes. So my complaint is not regarding the timing. So I don't have any issues with the timeliness of this. It has to do with the fact that, in my opinion, SFMTA is hiding a document that they have.
Okay. And that document is the transcript generated from the video of this particular hearing, which you believe the functionality of Microsoft Teams should allow MTA as the holder of the video to generate, which you cannot generate as just someone who has the video file. Am I understanding that?
Yes, except for the transcript is not generated from the video file. It is actually generated at the same time. It's a separate record that is produced simultaneously. One is the audio and video recording is one file, and the transcript is a separate file that is produced at the same time, with the hearing itself being its source, not the recorded video. That's the only clarification. But that is correct.
Okay. All right. No, I appreciate that. So it sounds like from the various people that we've heard from, it sounds like this is probably not a Hank issue or a Caroline issue. It sounds like this is possibly an IT issue, and it has to do with the functionality of Microsoft Teams and what the agency has access to at the time of a hearing and post a hearing, that, as in after a hearing, that someone that just has the video file does not have access to.
Correct.
That's
so
what I'm hearing.
my feeling on this is I would like to bring this back before us with a knowledgeable person from the MTA,
From IT.
from IT, to answer this question directly, and to take note of the fact that there's a screenshot here saying that it was a video and transcript. That's how it was recorded. And let's answer that question, because I think the petitioner is happy with 1 and 2 and the timeliness, except part 2 of number 1, which is the transcript. So it revolves around that. So I think rather than taking this to the full committee yet, let's get it before us. Let's get a knowledgeable person here to answer that at our next EOTC, and then we'll get to the heart of this matter. Member Kumar.
Yeah, two things. If the IT person does come for the meeting, it'll be a good idea to maybe ask why they turned off this, because if you had it on for so long and you were giving transcripts out, why did you suddenly turn it off? That's one question. Second is, it might be a good idea to add this information to our file, that a video file is usually a .mov or other format, and a transcript is usually like a text kind of a file, just so that we know the distinction between the differences between the two files for video and a transcript.
Right. And thinking out loud, this kind of brings back some thoughts about metadata. that we've had in other cases. Could this be considered a type of metadata of that public record? Quite possibly. So, we have a lot of work in that area with the anonymous cases we had before. So these are all good questions at the next hearing. So I'd like to make a motion to continue this to our next meeting and ask the MTA to have certainly Mr. Wilson here, as well as as maybe a senior member of the IT staff, to answer specifically questions about this particular March 29th Microsoft Teams video and transcript file.
And functionality, and in general,
That's enough. We're looking at this one particular file with those questions, and then we can get into all that. I'm just saying, I'm trying to make a succinct motion here, so that's my motion.
Fine. I will second that.
Okay. Pat, did you get all that? Remember, Pilpel, did you have a question? I know what you're saying, but I think for the purposes of
For purpose of this specific issue, yes, that's absolutely correct. We want to hear from IT about whether or not MTA has access to or can easily generate the transcript from this particular hearing. I'm also interested in the broader issue of Teams functionality at MTA for these kinds of hearings.
Sure. We can get it. We can get
Okay.
into all of that.
Okay, but I'm alerting MTA that they should be prepared to discuss what their general practice is for all of these hearings, what's recorded, when it starts, when it ends, what's available, and that there's consistency across the board. So it's not we do it one way for Color Curb and we do it a different way for other types of hearings, or we did it this way, except in March we started doing it a different way, and we don't really have any documentation as to what we changed or why we changed it. But let me just assure you that we changed something.
Yeah.
And that they changed it, and not that Microsoft changed something.
Yeah, like I said, if we have a knowledgeable person in front of us, we can get to all those
Okay.
all those questions.
And there are people at IT over there that know about this.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a motion
So
on
for
the
the
table.
language of the motion,
Yes.
moved by Chair Hyland, seconded by Member Pilpel, to continue the matter to the next EOTC meeting, that will refer to the date, and have Mr. Wilson and a senior member of the IT staff available to answer questions about the March 29 file and its functionality.
About the March 29th Microsoft Teams video and transcript file, comma, and to field questions about MTA's Microsoft Teams use and policy.
Apologies. About this March 29 Microsoft Teams video and file.
And video and transcript file.
And video
And
and transcript file.
comma, and to answer additional questions about MTA's
Probably files, and I think we made clear they're different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
files. That'd be good. This Microsoft, March 29th, Microsoft Teams video and transcript files. Files.
Microsoft Teams video and transcript.
Files,
File.
plural, comma, and to answer additional questions about MTA's use of Microsoft Teams.
For these kinds of hearings. Yeah.
Or just-
Yeah.
Again, this could be an interesting one. You know, what,
Do you want to record a video of it and have a transcript of it?
yeah,
One more time, and to answer questions about
MTA's policies with regard to use of Microsoft Teams.
questions about MTA's policies regarding the use of Microsoft Teams.
Yes. Perfect.
Public comment?
Yes, please.
We have no one in the room. Checking the online community. If you would like to speak on item 6, file number 24022, please raise your hand using the app or press *3. I'll give you a moment. We have no one wishing to make public comment.
Okay, public comment is closed.
Public comment is closed. Taking the vote, Chair Hyland.
I guess one thing we should add is we find jurisdiction, we find the records to be public. And
I don't think we need to make that motion yet.
not yet.
because
Okay,
we're-
fair enough. We're good as stated. So Member Highland says yes.
Chair Hyland, aye. Member Pilpel.
Aye.
Member Pilpel, aye. Member Kumar.
Aye.
Member Kumar, aye. 3 ayes. The motion passes.
All right. So MTA, be aware that we'll be scheduling this probably in the next 60 days. And thank you, Ms. Celaya, Mr. Wilson, and Mr. Kaniha for your attendance this evening.
Five-minute break.
Sure. Okay. Let's take a 5-minute recess.
Turning off the mics.
Only
Microphones are
do
on.
it because you love.
Thank God that's not on the record.
Item 7.
Why don't you re-announce the meeting? Say we're back in session. Just say we're coming back on session. Returning
The
from
committee
5
is back in session.
Great.
Item 7, file number 24024. Complaint filed by Rosa L. against the police department for allegedly violating Administrative Code Sunshine Ordinance, Section 67.21 by failing to respond to a public records request in a timely and/or complete manner. Rosa L., are you online? If yes, please raise your hand using the app or press *3. One moment, let me check. Hello, caller anonymous. Are you Rosa L.?
Or just say,
Thank you. We have Lieutenant Chris Beauchamp in the room. We do not have Rosa L.
or just say, is there anyone for item number 7?
Is there anyone present as a party for item number 7, file number 24024?
Raise your hand, talk to us.
Please raise your hand in the app
How many
by
people?
pressing *3 or using the app.
Are there several people online? How many people are online altogether?
We have 2 people online. One of them is Lieutenant Chris Beauchamp. The other caller, anonymous, identified themselves as not Rosa L.
Okay.
Lieutenant Beauchamp, you have been made a panelist.
You can also try Muckrock. I think she goes by that name.
That's their organization name.
All right.
Okay.
Well, this
Are you
is
ready?
This is a new item. First time we're hearing this, right?
Right.
So I think
Correct.
So I think following our SOTF policy number 7B, is it?
Yep.
That's correct.
I was about ready to make the motion.
Please go ahead.
I think the appropriate motion is to, what's the word? Wait a minute. Hold on. We've got the
Verbiage.
chart. Put it back. Nope, it's not on that list. No show at the end. To table the matter without prejudice due to non-appearance of the petitioner pursuant to Task Force Complaint Procedure 7B. It's the last thing on page 6,
Mhm.
right?
Do we have a second?
I move to do that.
I second it.
All right. Moved by member Pilpel, seconded by member Kumar. Any public comment on that?
If you are in the online community and wish to speak on item 7, file number 24024, please raise your hand in the app or press *3. I'll give you a moment. No one online wishing to make public comment.
All right, let's take a roll call.
That was moved by member Pilpel, seconded by member Kumar.
Yes.
Shall I take a vote?
Please.
Member Pilpel.
Aye.
Member Pilpel, aye. Member Kumar.
Aye.
Member Kumar, aye. Chair Hyland.
Aye.
Chair Hyland, aye. 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Next item, please.
I'm sorry, and I should have asked. We did not hear from Rosa L beforehand indicating anything? Nothing.
We did not receive any
Got it. Okay.
notification. Item 8, file number 24025. Complaint filed by Anonymous, SFPD, against the police department for allegedly violating Administrative Code Sunshine Ordinance, Section 67.21 by failing to respond to a public records request in a timely and/or complete manner, 67.25A and sub D by failing to respond to an immediate disclosure request in a timely and/or complete manner, and if needed, provide requested records on a rolling basis, and 6734 for willful violation.
Thank you. And I presume Lieutenant Beauchamp is still online, as well as the anonymous that is party to this case.
Checking with the caller, Anonymous. Hello, caller, you've been unmuted. Are you here for item 8, file number 24025?
Yes.
No.
One moment, please. Moving you to a panelist.
I just wanted,
Member Kumar?
sorry,
Yep.
yeah, I just wanted to add that my attachments did not open for this particular case.
Oh,
My attachments were not functional for
go
this.
down below. It says 1 to 2, 2 to 3. Click on the black ones. This is,
My apologies.
yeah, this, no, don't worry. This is something that we've asked them to correct, and they still keep coming up in this format.
Okay, I didn't know. I was under the impression I did it.
Yeah, that's okay. She has it now. She has it. Yeah. It's just that the blue word attachment is not a link. All right.
Just in the future, if it's possible to maybe add a line or something for people like me who might not be aware.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's.
Yes, the goal is to add it to the cover sheet
Okay.
where each section is itemized. It would be added in that section down below.
Great.
So there'd always be one attachment and it may sub out to others.
That is correct.
Okay. Do we have both parties as panelists?
Yes.
All right. Okay, Anonymous, you have 5 minutes to tell us about this case, followed by Lieutenant Beauchamp. Ms. Peterson will let you know when she's ready.
Anonymous, are you ready to speak?
Yes, I am.
Your 5 minutes begins now.
Thank you, Chair Hyland and members Pilpel and Kumar. On March 11th, I filed an immediate disclosure public records request with the SFPD. As of this date, it's not been fulfilled. Having read SFPD's response to my complaint, I accept their rationale for my request being outside immediate disclosure. My present concern is that SFPD has consistently misstated its responsibility under the PRA and the Sunshine Ordinance Act, and has used 3 erroneous misstatements as justification to delay producing records. My complaint, which begins on page 5 as listed, and the attached email correspondence, which begins on page 89, make this pattern clear. The 2 most recent incidents are found on page 124 in SFPD's response to my complaint. SFPD claims that as the records are a part of an ongoing investigation, they do not need to be disclosed. This is flatly untrue. Government's Code Section 7921.505, subsection B, states that any PRA disclosure exemption is waived if the requested documents have been previously disclosed. SFPD's own response says, quote, "These letters are already in public domain," unquote. By the department's own words, this is a clear-cut case, and yet SFPD misstates their obligation. SFPD then asserts that its duty under the law is to respond to a request within the allocated 10-day window rather than produce records within this window. On page 101, I've indicated a memo from the city attorney that states, quote, "As discussed below, departments must provide copies of records within 10 calendar days of a request or within a 14-day extension period." On page 96, you can see that I emailed this memo to SFPD. This is an example of SFPD misstating its obligations despite being informed of them all. Even going that far should be unnecessary. 67.21 subsection B clearly states that the department's obligation to produce records within the 10-day window. My concern here is not so much in my own request, SFPD has produced most of the records, but rather the implication for the department's service to the public. If FFPD misstates its responsibility to someone with a working knowledge of existing civic codes, how must it interact with members of the public who lack those resources to make these arguments? For these records, I asked the committee and the task force find that the requested records are public records. Further instruct that the SFPD to produce the remaining unproduced records in a 5-day window and adopt any necessary remedies to the current situation. I yield the remainder of my time.
Thank you. Is there anyone here speaking on behalf of the petitioner? We see no one in the room.
And no one online.
Thank you. All right. Please let Lieutenant Beauchamp know when you're ready.
Lieutenant Beauchamp, are you ready? Lieutenant Beauchamp?
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Your 5 minutes begins now.
Good evening, task force members. The police department maintains its position from its May 15th letter. The police department recognizes that these letters and pictures that the requester wants were released under a FOIA request from the FBI. The requester is asking the police department to create records which we do not currently have. He's asking for very specific formats and quality of pictures that are already in the public domain. So we are doing our best to fulfill that request, even though we are not required to create a record on his behalf. Additionally, we believe the requester is confusing the idea of the duty to respond by a public agency versus that of a duty to produce. We believe that 7922-530A and 6725D are worded correctly in that they say that records should be made promptly available or on an incremental or rolling basis, respectively, as soon as the records are produced. To expect that any public agency would have to identify, locate, and create or disseminate records that date back, in this case, 55 years from a specific source within 10 working days is incredulous. At the end of the day, the requester already has the records that they are requesting. They're only requesting higher quality scans of said records. We have one individual working in the department whose primary function is in the field and taking and analyzing photographs. So the idea that we would be required to have the remainder of these records, I believe there was 43 pictures requested, and we have subsequently produced 36 of these requested photographs within 4 responses since April 19th. I believe we're providing the records on a prompt and rolling basis. And the idea that we would have to produce all records, regardless of length, complexity, or age, within 10 to 14 days, we believe is an erroneous understanding of both the PRA Act and the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force Ordinance. PD so stipulates.
Is that the conclusion of your presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Lieutenant Beauchamp. Is there anybody online in support of the respondent?
There is no one online.
Thank you. The matter is before us.
Just thinking here, I apologize for that. I'll try not to do much of that in the future.
What, talking or apologize?
No, the thinking.
All right. Thank you. Oh, okay.
Nice try. So to the anonymous petitioner, and I appreciate your interest in all of this. Are you suggesting that this is a topic that you want us to discuss, but that there is either no violation or that this isn't really about timeliness or a violation per se, but it's really about the obligations of the police department and a differing interpretation of their obligations? Am I hearing you correctly?
I would like the records, and I do believe they're in violation of the Sunshine request.
Okay.
but I think it's a greater issue to the public.
Right. That's what I thought I heard. Okay. So you think that at a minimum there is an issue with not timely responding to your instant request here, but you're also highlighting what you think is the greater problem that you want us to think about or talk about?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So first, as to your instant request, you're saying that you believe they should have provided the higher resolution scans or other records related to this case sooner, and by not having done so, that they're at a minimum untimely, and at most, delaying or withholding or whatevering being a legal technical term.
Yes, but you can see on page 96, you can see that I asked them if they were invoking the rule of reason, and they failed to respond to the inquiry.
Okay. I did want to. I was going to ask Lieutenant Beauchamp in a second, but perhaps Mr. Anonymous, if you could just help me to begin with on the on this issue of an old record being problematic for the department. Do you see any distinction between something new, something easy to find, as opposed to some specific record that may be older or more difficult to find?
I mean, these are homicide records which have been kept on site permanently, so it should be easy to find.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you there, and we've had some amount of back and forth with the police department historically and recently about their record keeping and indexing and ability to find things. And that while all departments have that obligation to maintain records in an organized fashion, that police have, sort of a special obligation to that. Is that sort of where you're coming from?
Yes, 100%.
Okay. And while every department isn't required to keep everything forever, that the police department has sort of a almost unique responsibility to keep evidence related to crime, if not forever, for a long time, perhaps forever, and certainly be able to find it, and more so on these high-profile things that you seem interested in. Am I?
That is, yeah, no, that is
that?
correct.
Okay.
And you can see on page 80, I've included a listing for SFPD homicide files in the records that are kept in the index that are permanently kept on the site.
Got it. Okay. And you're not the first, or I mean, you're the most recent perhaps, but not the only person in the last 6 months or a year that's inquired from the police department and ended up before this task force related to sort of high profile cases like this. This is like not the first. There's been several.
Yeah.
Okay.
It seems like an ongoing issue.
Yeah. Okay. So let me turn to Lieutenant Beauchamp for a moment. Can you help me a little bit on those issues? Do you see any kind of distinction between recent records and old records, and this issue that we've been talking about as to where and how police department keeps its records and evidence and how you find stuff and yada yada?
I do generally. More recent records are in a digital format, which is much easier to search. Specifically speaking of this record, we're talking about 55-year-old photographic negatives. I'm sure, I'll assume that certain members.
Are you positive?
I'm positive. I'm assuming that some of the task force members remember photographic negatives. They can degrade over time, especially if they're not kept in a correct temperature controlled and humidity controlled environment. The erroneous idea that, all SFPD records are kept on site belies the notion that there is one humongous SFPD location.
Right. I don't think anyone's suggesting that they're all kept at the same location and that they're all prioritized in the same way. I hear that.
And so speaking to that, our older records, everything that existed before the concept of digitization, which would be very recent, perhaps within the last 20 years, as much as we would love to have all of that digitized, we have certain priorities, and currently the priorities are more focused on current investigations and current digitization than finding the money and the resources to go back and digitize all of our old files. In this specific instance, because of this request, the specific individual in the photograph unit is having to go back, search through all the old negatives to locate the specific pictures in question, examine them, determine if they're matching the request, and then scanning them in and creating the specific type of file that the requester wants. This is in addition and above and beyond his normal duties. So he is doing his level best to provide us with the documents, and we are providing them as soon as we receive them from the individual in the photograph unit. But we cannot supplant his normal everyday duties in helping solve and prevent crimes to also handle PRA requests.
Lieutenant Beauchamp, let me jump in. On that point, if the requester asked to come in person or send someone on his behalf to perhaps take a high resolution picture of the original, is that something you would allow? And when I say that, perhaps I'm mistakenly assuming there is an original picture and a negative that you're working with?
My understanding is that the photographs in question exist in negative format.
Only, okay, so it's a question of producing that negative at this higher resolution.
Yes, so the negative have specially scanned in and created in this specific format and turned over.
This is an interesting question.
So
does it exist?
So let me just go down my usual bit with the police for a second. So Lieutenant Beauchamp, let's say that you and I were the only two people dealing with the city budget. It's a beautiful dream, but let's just go with it for a second. I assume that you've got some level of resources now to deal with public records, both in your unit, whatever the broader risk management group is, media relations, photography, investigations, whatnot. That some amount of police resources go into public records, yes?
I have a limited amount, yes.
Okay. Let's say that total budget, however you sliced and diced that, is, let's just say, wholly inadequate to the task of modern records management for this size police department with this amount of history, with this number of requests.
Come to the point, Mr. Member Pilpel.
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Would you say that's fair?
For the sheer number of requests, we do not have the staff or resources necessary
to adequately, reasonably repeat it. Okay. So
to provide documents in an extremely short time frame.
Okay. So how can we get from here, that bad place or the place we're at now, to a either perfect or at least a better place in terms of resources? Is it literally a charter amendment? Is it a specific budget action? Is it, a letter and repeated requests from this task force to influence the police department budget? I mean, how do we make this better in 5 or 10 years? Because it will take at least that amount of time to develop the staff and the systems and digitize and index and all that. How do we get to a better...
Lieutenant Beauchamp, you don't need to answer that question. Remember, Pilpel, we're going down a rabbit hole here. Let's just focus on this particular case and what's being asked.
Well, that's the broad question. The more specific is, could we at least find a way for the top 5 historical cases that you get asked about, whether it's Zodiac or others, that you're getting questions about on a regular basis, to index, digitize, photograph, make negatives available, all of that stuff, so that all the researchers and all the documentary filmmakers and all the journalists in the world can have access to that stuff, and they can do with it whatever they want. I mean, presumably all of the people are dead and all the DNA is no good and all the whatever, and let them have it. I mean, if it's, 25, 50 years old, 75 years old, whatever, and everybody's gone, how is that still an ongoing investigation? And what's the harm in making just at least those top 5 cases, all that information available, whatever it is? How about that?
In response to that, first, in speaking with the investigator in this case is still actively being investigated. DNA tests are being sent out, investigation interviews are still being done, leads are still being followed. For homicide cases, the closure rate is, I believe it's 100 years is when a case can be officially closed out as an exceptional clearance. And then speaking to identifying what the top 5 historical cases are, that can literally change at the drop of a dime, flip of a hat.
Okay,
we didn't receive any Zodiac requests for probably a good couple of years, and then we received 2 or 3 all at once. If something hits the news all of a sudden, we get a lot of requests for it. So as much as I would love to identify those 5, it does tend to be a moving target. And we are taking lessons from this. We are maintaining a file of all the records that we're providing to this requester, because I believe this is the requester's 2nd request on this particular topic, and keeping a file within the public records unit so that if we do receive another request, we will have them ready to be released. I believe the time frame that we've been able to respond to this request for 55-year-old documents is within the confines. We received the original request on March 11th, and we produced documents on April 19th, May 3rd, May 9th, and May 14th.
Okay.
So I believe, especially within the confines of 55-year-old records that are very specific in their nature and production, the police department has been following the tenets of both the Sunshine Ordinance and the California Public Records Act, especially for something which the requester already has in their possession.
Thank you. Member Kumar, you had a comment?
Yeah, this is for the lieutenant. So I know that you might have restrictions on what apps you can use, but did your department consider any cost-effective ways to get the high-resolution photos to the the petitioner, like maybe using a DSLR to take photos of the negatives, or using a phone app like Filmori, or even scanning the negatives? Like, did your department even consider cost-effective methods with stuff at your disposal, like a scanner?
So we only have one individual working in our photograph unit who has the capabilities of doing this. So they did not provide us with any specifics about ways to increase their efficiency in responding to this specific request.
So if I may add, is it possible for you to maybe go back to that one person in your photograph department and ask them that there are XYZ easy, cost-effective solutions, like maybe just scanning those negatives and getting high-resolution photograph, maybe giving those solutions a shot, and then getting back to the petitioner with a firm reply saying, we can't do this, or we can do this?
Our photographic unit personnel is doing his best to both examine all of the negatives in regards to this request and find the ones that were requested by the requester, and then being able to transmit them in the correct format that is requested. I can reach out to him to see if there's any ways for him that he would suggest would increase his productivity in this. The great sticking point is that this individual has a primary duty to assist with current cases and we're asking him to set aside his current duties to assist us in this PRA. So he's having to balance the normal course of business versus helping us fulfill this request. We believe we're doing so in a timely manner, especially given the fact that the requested records are being produced in a specific format from very old existing records.
Is can I
And the fact that we are creating
I
records
just
that
want
we
to add
don't
that
normally use in the normal standard operating course of business.
No, I just want to add, I'm not questioning your productivity, and I completely understand that one person might be overstaffed, but like if it's possible to explore this kind of a solution and get back to the petitioner with a timeline saying that given these are your circumstances, and maybe giving clarity on how much time, even if it takes more than that amount of time, I think that might really help the petitioner, because right now it seems like you are saying you cannot do this, but actually it can be done if that person can set aside some time. If you get what I mean?
Well, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. We have produced 36 out of the 43 records since March 11th. We're producing them, but we're producing them on a rolling basis. We have to compare the records requested by the requester versus the negatives we have. Imagine looking at individual negatives to determine whether or not they match with what the requester is requesting. That is a painstaking process, especially when you're trying to preserve evidence in a 55-year-old homicide case, which is extremely high profile. So it's the fact that he's taking his time, I feel, is actually in the spirit of the request and trying to produce the intended documents in the intended format without willy-nilly saying, well, we don't have it. I couldn't be bothered to look through everything.
All right. Lieutenant Beauchamp, again, 36 out of 43. So you know what the remaining 7 documents are. So it's not so much looking through 100 documents to get the one, or am I misunderstanding that?
So I believe out of the remaining photographs, there may be a couple images that we're not able to locate. But what we're doing is we're corresponding. If you look through your packets, there are specific images the requester wants. So we're checking to ensure that we have those specific images that we can then release. Since those images are already in the public domain, we feel that it is, of course, necessary that we provide these records, even though we're having to create them at the requester's behalf.
Well, I don't know if create is the right word. Enhance based on it. All right, whatever it is. I got it. Can I just jump in again from here? So I'm not volunteering the services of another department, but I do know that MTA, who we just dealt with a little while ago, has a photo person. I think his name is Jeremy. I assume that the photo person with PD is either a 1770 or a 1774. Might there be a way to examine other photography resources within the city to see if some other department, on a work order basis could send somebody, for a couple hours once a week or twice a month to help when you get a backlog of public records requests related to photographs? I mean, are there creative ways that we could do things here that don't involve, some massive $1 million contract with people in LA or whatever to just deal with, hey, we need somebody that could help us that understands this stuff that's already in the city family? Are there things like that we could explore?
Potentially, that is something I would have to discuss with our fiscal unit about whether we can budget that out. And plus, I would have to speak with our CLETS administrator and our investigations unit to see
all kinds of people. Yeah, some background checks and all that. But I mean, I'm not suggesting spending $1 bazillion on this, but it's like, if you've got a thing, if work ordering $1,000 to another department would help, that's not the hardest thing in the world. I mean, there are a lot of things that we can't do. I'm trying to think creatively of things that we maybe could do that would help here.
Thank you, Member Pilpel. All right, I think we might be ready to move to rebuttals.
Let's do that.
Lieutenant Beauchamp, you can go first.
Lieutenant, when you're ready.
Okay. The police department's position is unchanged. We believe that these records are already in the public domain, so the police department is not responding to a public records request, but it's instead creating records at the requester's behalf. We have responded in a timely manner. We believe that the requester is erroneous in their interpretation of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force and the Public Records Act by believing that agencies have to produce records within 10 or the 14-day extension. We have been producing records for this requester. We've produced over 2/3 of the records requested and are still working on it. We have produced those records in a timely fashion. We've identified the logistical log jams that are causing our slow but steady responses. We are doing our best to overcome them in the means that we have. And we have been following the tenets of both the PRA and the Sunshine Ordinance in being timely in our responses and in our production of the requested documents. PD so stipulates.
Okay. Is that the conclusion of your testimony?
Yes.
All right.
The wrap up and then we'll-
Anonymous, bear with us. Mr. Peterson's going to give you your 3-minute notice.
Anonymous, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right, your 3 minutes. Go
Just
ahead.
just a few points, but I wanted to thank the lieutenant for fulfilling the request and the department on the rolling basis. But the Sunshine Act says what it is, and the public domain says what it is. And as I've stated, I accept SFPD's rationale that this is not an immediate disclosure request, and have sent SFPD an email giving them the opportunity to explain that they've invoked the rule of reason, which they've failed to respond to. I mean, some of the records on the dates that they've stated that they supplied on the dates are re-uploads of materials that they supplied on earlier dates in this request, essentially the same material with different file names. The sample images that I provided were not the result of an FBI FOIA request, at least not in their entirety. On page 47 and 53, for example, you can see SFPD's evidence tags, and these images don't resemble the black and white Xerox format found in the FBI files, which suggests a disclosure from the department at some point in the past. Also, Lieutenant has misstated that they're all negatives, as evidenced by the SFPD response to the letter on page 121, which states that at least one of the provided images is from a source other than a negative. I believe SFPD has failed to meet these obligations. It seems pretty obvious, so I yield the rest of my time, and I just hope we do what's right here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, what are we feeling on this one?
Yeah.
Member Kumar?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Highland. Just wanted to quickly check with you. I mean, in cases of photos, resolution, I mean, I can totally go to a department and ask for a high resolution photograph of something very old, but in a lot of cases that image might end up being distorted or might not appear in a good, I mean, might be granular. Is it like, I mean, this request is very specific about a certain resolution of a photo. I just wanted to know if if the department has to really comply with that level of specificity in a request for things like photographs, because there are some photographs which can be produced in a high definition quality. Some photographs simply cannot be, because of maybe they are small in size, or they were granular in the first place, or they were unclear, maybe torn. I don't know. So I just want to understand how do we look at these kind of situations when the department, even though they want to fulfill a request, they can't really meet the exact specification of what is being asked. Like, I think in this case, the petitioner is asking for 1,200, I think, the resolution. Yeah.
1,200.
Yes.
So in answer to that, I'm trying to find the section, but I think the charter might be silent on that. I seem to remember though, it said something about a certain level of quality.
I know.
I'm looking for that. Bear with us.
What I remember is that a public agency is required to provide the public record or an exact duplication or copy of it for public review. Period. I don't remember reading anywhere over the years about the specificity or clarity of the record. If anything, there may be some language about, it being reasonable, that a reasonable person would be able to view the record. That's it. It sounds to me like in this case, the department is attempting to meet the requester's need, so it's or request, so it's sort of an above and beyond. And I think that's great, and I appreciate that. And we can always go back to my bit about the police department being under-resourced, and I know Chair Hyland doesn't want to do more of that tonight.
Does not. So I mean, rather than saying, "Oh, it's in the public domain," if the police department had sent everything that's in the public domain in that level of resolution, have they satisfied the request? That could be a yes. Now, the specificity of the request requires a new document to be created.
Yeah, because that's how I understood how the case started, that the petitioner didn't get the high resolution photographs. But the point is that the police department already has given these photographs. So
yeah,
if they are or are not high resolution, wouldn't really fall under our purview.
Right. I don't see anything that compels them to do that. And I'm kind of on the police department side that they're doing this as an act of, good faith on a rolling basis. So I'm not seeing.
Can we ask the petitioner for a quick second? Do you think that we're mistaken? Do you find somewhere in the law that you seem pretty familiar with as well, that if you request a high quality 1-to-1 original scale digital TIFF or PNG format scan of no less than 1200 DPI of any and all images, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah?
I have to check. I'm not comfortable answering without looking, but.
Okay. But I mean, in general, if they have it, then yes, they would have to produce it. If they don't have it, but can produce it or relatively easily produce it,
can create it.
Right.
We're saying.
Then are they in effect creating a record to your spec, and can they do that if and when they feel like it, but are not compelled to? You see where we're going with this?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not telling them not to. We're happy that they're doing it, but we're just sort of noodling through whether they're actually required to do this.
We're happy they're doing it too, but it seems that they are required to do it under the we're not sure.
Okay.
So, members, at this point, do we have a motion?
This one's yours.
I'm not comfortable that there is a violation. That's.
I think the motion, I was thinking of a motion that is move to say that the police department has provided the documentation and it's in the process of doing so. And the motion is that there's no violation, like they're not obligated to give high resolution photographs as long as they're giving the documents. This has to be worded properly.
Just to be clear, did the police department provide all the documents as previously available, or did they just say it's in the public domain, go get them?
So I think they gave 36 and the remaining they said where it was in the public domain, and they're working on giving high resolution photographs.
Oh,
The remaining documents, did I get that correct, Lieutenant?
Lieutenant Beauchamp?
Yes, I believe I saw a message from our photographic unit either today, I believe it was today, saying that he had identified a few more of the remaining photos and was just having to balance scanning them in and examining them to make sure they're the correct ones.
Okay, so the 36 that have been provided were of the same at the same resolution of the 36 that were already in the public domain?
No, they're higher resolution than the ones that were already in the public domain.
That's what I understood. So all 43 are already in the public domain at X resolution, but they've gone above and beyond for 36.
Yes.
So my inclination is, so even if something's public domain and someone requests it, you have to provide it. So had the police department provided the original 43 in the previously existing,
In whatever form they exist.
in the previously existing resolution that was in the public domain, they've satisfied the requirement. Rather than just saying it's in the public domain, go get it, right?
Right now it's taking time because they're trying to make it HD.
Right.
One of you craft a motion.
I'm not
And
going to.
just to explain this, so if there are these photographs in the public domain, but if you want a HD photo, you need to go locate the original photo
Right.
and then scan it for the HD. So it's going to take time.
All right, I'm sticking on the fact that, getting stuck on the fact that although it's redundant, under the Sunshine Law, if requested, they should have forwarded those 43 documents as they had them as a first step. Then as a second step, above and beyond, they can say, okay, we're going to go on a rolling basis and see if we can get
As resources permit, we will
this.
attempt to.
So but it sounds like, Lieutenant Beauchamp, that those original 43 in the original resolution were not provided as a response. What you did say instead is it's in the public domain. However, let's work on them. Is that correct?
The requester provided us with the 43 images, and then we've been going through to find them and turn them back over in high resolution.
Okay, that's interesting. All right. Okay. So I see no violation here. I really don't. This is a above and beyond request that the police department in good faith is attending to as resources permit. That's kind of where I'm at with this.
That's the motion.
Is this a referral to consent?
Oh, that wasn't a motion. That was just my position.
Make it as a motion.
Yeah, this can be a motion. I don't see a violation either. So the motion is that the police department went above and beyond in giving the requested documents and
In a higher resolution.
in high resolution photograph.
Okay. And the committee sees, and we see no violation here.
We see no violation.
Member Pilpel? Would you like to second that?
Did you want me to second that? I think that's a motion from Member Umar.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, great.
To find no violation and that the task force appreciates the police department providing high resolution images above and beyond the requirements.
Given their staffing situation.
Yeah, for all kinds of reasons. Yeah.
Okay.
Stating our appreciation.
I think the motion should just be, cleaner than that, and then you can add that as an afterthought, but it's up to you guys. You're creating.
Let's mention that as an afterthought, but I think it's worth noting on the record.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And using the phrase above and beyond,
Sure, why not? I mean, are you
or satisfied.
Yeah, sure. They did go above and beyond. So yeah.
So why don't we start with, if we find we have jurisdiction, the records are public, and we make a recommendation of no violation. Next.
Before that, are we referring the matter to the consent?
Yes, we are.
agenda?
Yes, to the consent calendar with no violation, right?
With no violation of section 67.21, 67.25A.
Just no violation.
No violation.
Just no violation.
Yeah, no violation.
Yeah, no violation. And you can then add the sentence, we recognize the police department's efforts.
One second to Pat. Where we recommend a violation, we cite code. Where we recommend no violation, we don't have to cite code.
Yeah.
No violation.
Thank you. One moment, please.
So find jurisdiction, records of public, refer to the consent calendar,
With the finding of no violation.
no violation. Next sentence, we also recognize the efforts that the police department have made above and beyond to satisfy this request. How about that?
For higher resolution photos. Sure.
Yeah.
I'll find another opportunity to discuss the resource issue.
Not tonight, you won't.
Not tonight.
All right.
They tell me that Rome was not built in a day.
We can't fix everything.
We also recognize the efforts that the police department made above and beyond to satisfy this request for higher resolution photos.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
All right. How about some public comment on that?
We have no callers in the queue. We have no one in the room.
Very good. All right. Public comment is closed.
Taking the vote. Member Kumar.
Aye.
Member Kumar, aye. Member Pilpel.
Aye.
Member Pilpel, aye. Chair Highland.
Aye.
Chair Highland, aye. 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank you both parties, Anonymous and Lieutenant Beauchamp, for your attendance this evening.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next item.
Item 9, announcements, comments, questions, and future agenda items by members of the Education Outreach and Training Committee.
Is this where you talk about resources? Members, anything?
Member Kumar, did you have fun tonight?
Yes, this was a very all the cases were very interesting, and I really enjoyed being part of the committee. Thank you.
They were.
We might do this again in a couple of months. Think about it. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
Pat, are we on in 2 months? I know the calendar's been up and down. Is
Currently, yes, on in 2 months.
okay. Is there a date we have? It
One
would
moment.
be
Fourth Tuesday in July.
yeah.
July 23rd from the looks of it.
Ah, Victor, you are there. I knew you were. All right. July 24th. Let me put a quote there.
5:30, same bat time, same bat channel.
Yeah, there's a few issues going on that month because we were trying to do a special on one of those days, but it doesn't look like we have enough people.
I also
Sometime around that time frame.
Oh, that's right. Wasn't the 23rd?
28th, we wanted 7 people. We're not there.
Okay. Was the 23rd an alternate date we're considering since we have the room?
I don't think we've spoken about that yet.
Okay.
Member Kumar had a comment.
Member Kumar?
I just want to add that on the 24th we might have our the task force meeting that day.
That's what we're talking about. Yeah, that's one possible date they threw out, but I don't think we have quorum for that. Is that correct? 24th is dead in the water.
It's close.
It's close. Okay. All right.
So we should probably bring that up on the June 5th meeting next week.
Yeah. Okay.
While everyone's in the room, it's easier to get everyone in the room and make a decision than trying to pull everybody.
I agree. All right. Okay.
I had a couple other things to say, but I'm just going to skip them right now. So
You're going to save them? Okay. All right.
Well, let me ask you, if we do move to the 23rd, would EOTC want to meet on the 24th? Because we do have that room reserved. If task force takes the 23rd date.
I think I was one of the ones that can't do the 24th.
Okay, never mind. We'll work it out on June 5th.
All right, very good. Okay.
Just have the option so we can talk about it.
Yeah, I will not be in town. I may not even be in town on the 23rd at this point, but I'm not sure.
I won't be there for the 24th meetings, but
Bill, or what?
24th July, I won't be there.
Are you?
I'm not.
23rd
No, I'm not.
that week. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Are you likely out or definitely out?
Likely out.
Okay.
Very, very likely out. Yeah.
All right. So it sounds like member Kumar is not around that week of the 22nd, 23rd, 24th. I intend to be around at this point.
Well, let's take this up on the June 5th full task force, but it's looking bleak for that week. We may just have to skip the July meeting based on what I'm seeing, but to be continued, to be determined, I should say. To be continued would be too hopeful. To be determined. All right. Any other announcements? Any public comment on that item? I see no one in the room.
How about just discuss meeting scheduling?
Callers online, if you would like to speak on item 9, announcements and comments, please raise your hand in the app or press *3. I'll give you a moment. We have no hands raised online.
All right.
Still have people on there? Hundreds of people listening?
Apparently. Next item, please.
Item 10, adjournment.
Without objection.
With member Kumar, I'd like to make the motion.
Adjourned at 9.
Okay, motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
We are adjourned at 9:12 p.m.
Very good. Thank you, everybody.
You may want to stop the recorder.